Good morning. Welcome to the October 15th, 2025 School Board of Alachua County Workshop. At this time, Ms. Johnson, do we have any public comment? No, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Now we are moving on to reviewing board committees. I'm going to recognize Dr. Patton.
Thank you. So I think what we'd like to see, and we staff, we will take notes on what you all think about with the various committees. The intent that we've been asked was to provide a listing of all the committees that the board members are on and have you all have an opportunity to do a little deeper dive into, are these committees that you would like to have the board still stand if they're not required? And any kind of input. So we have tried to collect, and thank you board members for your information, because we did ask a couple of weeks ago if you, on the committees you're in, if you have any bylaws that state on that committee that it is a requirement for the school board, just to give you all then just the opportunity to decide what you would like to leave on as committees, possibly consider taking off. All of this is in a lead up to the November reorganization meeting, when you would then select and decide who represents the different people on the committees. So part of the why also was because the way Alachua has pretty much run our committee selections, the appearances over time, the general is that as a new board member comes on, they automatically just take the committees of the person they have now sit in that seat. So there's never been an option about what committees you might want to serve on based on your talents, your likes, your dislikes. And so rather than just making that automatic assumption, it would be a chance in November for you to decide potentially to just each year annually talk through the committees of which ones you would like. So this is in essence an actual workshop leading up to your reorganization in November. So you have two lists in front of you. One is by the current board member and their committees, but what we can do is go through this list now in the alphabetical order and go right down the list. So if you could pull up the list that starts with the Blunt Center Advisory Committee. And just as a couple of reminders, is that some things are on here that have just been historically on for a while. Some we tried to find what's the rationale of how it became a committee for the board. Some, as we've discovered, are actually staff meetings. So it's a variety, but it is a long list. I've mentioned before, I came from a county where we only have 5 total committees that board members are on. So we have a lot more here, and you're certainly welcome to do whatever you would like, but we just want to facilitate that conversation for you today. So if we go in alphabetical order, we could start with the Blunt Center Advisory Committee. That's, oh, sorry. I'm on the wrong list. And another way that someone suggested to me to think about it is that if a board member has to, they are termed out now that we have term limits. If we have a board member that is on term limits and they're on a committee, because it might be their personal committee, a way to potentially think about that is, do you want to leave that? A board member can be on a committee, in other words, that's not representing the school board. That might be a personal committee that they've chosen to be on, but somehow it's on this list. So another way to think through this is, you get to some of these, if someone termed out, would you replace them on that committee? Do you know what I mean by that? That's another way to think about, do we want to keep a board member on that committee?
So we're starting with the list that begins with the
Alachua County Juvenile Justice, sorry, in alphabetical order. So the Alachua County Juvenile Justice is not a required committee. You can see when they do meet, they meet virtually. So it's completely your thought process. We'll take notes about, would you want to still have a board member be on that committee? Yes, we're going to go right through alphabetically.
Yeah, sorry, me. I think it's a good idea to keep it, just making sure that, it's something that we're communicating consistently on, because the meeting link's not always available, but especially because so many of our students do go through the ARJDC system, and we have a lot of students that even come through just that for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time. It's kind of good to understand what's going on.
Does it require?
But it is not required. You know, it does not require one of us, no.
And if you have ones that you could put in the parking lot to say, maybe we want to bring that one back, we're welcome to do that too.
Ms. Surden.
So, Dr. Patton, I guess my question would be, for the ones that we're saying that, like in this case, this one here, Mr. Vu says it doesn't require a board member. Can we just say we can have a staff or whatever instead of just?
Absolutely.
I mean, right? We can just say staff or whatever. I mean, so this doesn't take so long.
And I do think too, we need to like, just before we even get started here, are we just going through the list and making sure, hey, what's just absolutely required, starting with that, and then are we expanding out from there? Or are we just kind of thinking as a group, well, what do we actually want to keep regardless of required status or not?
Well, we could go with the required, and we could start with that. And we have a mark for you, so let's go through the list then, and here we are the ones that we know. And then also a question is, if it's required, do we want to say that we would have an alternate if it's a required? So those are all the kinds of questions. So let's go ahead and we'll do the required first. So the first required would happen to be the second one, the Alachua County
I have a
plan.
question. We were saying that if they're not required, we might say that a staff member could do it. We probably will want to double check with those committees that it is
If it's
okay
able.
for a staff member to do it.
And to be honest, that's why we wanted to have this meeting today or in October. So if that's the case, that we have time to call them and let you know when we come back in November, here's what they said. Perfect.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, Dr. McNeely.
One of the things, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, now you can. Inasmuch that our staff, and I'm wondering, what staff are you referring to? They have enough. They have enough. And to say that we would add this in lieu of us not doing what we need to do, I don't agree with that. I just needed to put that out.
So I guess, Dr. McNeely, like I'll use one of the ones that I do. So the school board, on the planning boards for the city of Gainesville and the city of Alachua, it's part of the bylaws. It says that a school board member, appointee of the school board. So it doesn't have to be me as a member or you. It could be someone from our organization because they want them to be abreast of that. But now, if it's a lot of these committees here are just things, as Dr. Patton shared with me, and she just shared just a few minutes ago, are things that were activities and things that board members were a part of, like the system of care, for instance.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily require a board member's attendance on that. And with Dr. Patton being, or whoever the soup is, they would assess which staff person could go in the workloads or whatever. So that's what I'm saying. But if we're saying that the board member is not there and it doesn't require attendance, then maybe if staff or nobody goes. But we're just identifying today, I guess.
I understand, but I wanted to put out there, our staff of Alachua County Public Schools, they are doing an extraordinary, marvelous job. And I would hate to add one more thing to their plates. If it's our responsibility, even though it's not required, then be absent on that one. And then get with your committee to find out what you missed. But please don't add one more thing and I'm not talking about the people who are sitting in here, but we have all kind of staff in this building, and they're ripping and running all day and in meetings all day.
I'm not trying to give anyone any additional work. I fulfill the things that I put my name beside. So I'm okay with whatever we do and whatever we decide to do as a body.
Well,
But
we
I
could
do think we're-
also come back in November. Anyone that you say that you either like to look and explore, could staff, let us find out, is that something that's part of someone's regular job? We might even have people that are already attending them too. So like for that one, we'll just put to explore and bring back.
Are some of these committees can be eliminated?
Yes.
How do we make that distinction that we don't even need to have us part of the committee at all? How did they get on here that says that we need to be part of it?
I think it's a whole variety of ways. Let's use the system of care, as I was able to track that back. There was a board member, let me get you that name, hold on one second.
It was the District 2, I think, board member.
Eileen Roy, right, so she was very integral in standing up system of care, so she wanted to sit on that committee as they met. So that's how that happened, for an example, but then as staff would recommend when we get to that, it's actually an operational meeting of all the services that meet, so really, there shouldn't be a board member there. So some of these, we do know the history, some, they've just been on here, to your question, for a long time. That's why we're trying to clean this up to say what's a reasonable number of committees that boards could serve on that. So again, let's move forward with the required, and we'll come back to any of these. And for example, since we already did the juvenile justice, we'll explore that one and bring it back again to let you know for November. So the next required is Alachua County Planning Board.
So that's actually not required.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's the one
I
you just sent the
emailed you,
note
yeah.
about, right.
So, and that one could be a staff member as
Right.
well, and, yeah, and not that I want to give staff any additional work, but I think,
Well, staff should be there. If we're not,
well,
Right.
that's what I was going to say, is my understanding of concurrency and planning for that is not going to be as good as one of our operations staff members would be. And the other thing with it is, you know, when they publish the agenda, we can look and see ahead of time if there's anything that would impact concurrency. So the last couple of meetings, it's been commercial development that they were looking at. So I knew that I didn't need to attend that.
right.
But I wanted to make that correction. It's not required.
Right, so that is one I would tell you now that we would have a staff member attend. We should have a staff member attend. So the next required is the bid protest hearing. That's our own established procedure, and we agree with that one,
I'll stay, that's fine.
okay? Then we have Black on Black Crime Task Force. Not required, your discussion?
Sorry, Ms.
I'm
Plazak
sorry,
was
the-
asking what level 2 was.
Oh.
And I was just saying it's when they escalate their protest to the second step.
And then the Black on Black Crime Task Force, not required.
Right, and I don't think it's met this year at all, or at least they have.
Is it the first Wednesday,
Okay.
Dr. McNeely? First Wednesday, Black on Black meets, yeah. And normally I've attended, Dr. McNeely's attended, we just
So
attended.
like, I guess I haven't been sent any of the information on it yet still.
So do you want to, if multiple go, do you still want to have an official designee from the board, or just sounds like more people go anyway? So take that one off?
I think it can come off, it's like a community type.
Okay. The Blunt Center Advisory Committee. I'm sorry, I lost track again. We were going to do just the required first, so let's skip down to the Children's Trust of Alachua County, which is required.
I'll stay, yeah.
Right, and we need an alternate too, I imagine, because what if you can't make the meeting? We don't have an assignment.
That's not how that goes, because
so because it's a-
statutory. So
Oh,
you have
it's
to send
statutory.
the name to the state, and then Dr.
got it,
Patton,
got it.
it's just a school board member and the superintendent, so.
So no alternate can be done, got it.
So then, just for clarity, are we going to also add in who is, or are we doing the who's in November?
Oh, November, right?
right? I think we're just today coming through to leave on the list, take off the list. And if we need to add an alternate, say that we'll need an alternate in November. Okay.
For the planning board, it says one is a school board member serving 4-year terms.
For the planning, for which one?
Planning. Planning and commission, it says one is a school board member.
You're talking about CTAC, Kim?
Yeah, no, she's talking about the planning commission, the Alachua County Planning
It's
Commission.
labeled that one is a school board member.
It says the local agency planning is,
It says the planning commission is comprised of 8 members, one is a school board member,
Is that for Alachua County one? Oh, okay.
serving 4-year terms.
Okay, I sent an email specifically asking them, and
they
they
said-
told me,
Yeah, I asked, like, with the city's plan board and Alachua also, it says a school board member or designee by the school board is what it says for the Gainesville and Alachua. So I would imagine the county might be the same way.
So, but what I'm hearing though is that the county says no, it's a school board member, it's
Do you
not
get to
or
vote?
designee.
she,
With the county, do you get
Dr.
to vote,
Rocco
Karen?
literally wrote them, and their response back said could be a designee. It's interesting, I read your
They could be
email.
wrong about their own
Did you
bylaws,
get to
so I
vote?
think that's something worth double.
So let's us follow up on that.
Yeah.
We'll follow up from staff.
Look at the bylaws, yeah.
Okay. The next required, Children's Trust, then the next required was on the second page, Economic Development Advisory Committee, the E EDAC.
I think that's on the first page in our copy.
Oh, and your copy, yeah, sorry.
So, yes, that one, that one you cannot assign an alternate to. And once you agree to do it, it has an attendance requirement. If you miss more than 2 meetings in a year, our organization loses our seat.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very strict. And somehow I am the chair of that committee, so. So,
That's a keeper.
yeah, so that's a keeper, but,
So
Yeah,
how about then, Dr. Rocco, we're going to add to our notes that we're trying to take, that what you just shared, that the organization loses a seat if there are more than 2 absences, just so for the future, board members always know a little bit more about these committees up front.
but this is
thank
another
you.
one where the committee has to vote in a new member, so we can't just send an alternate.
Okay.
And in their bylaws, does it say it's a school board member that is part of that seat? Like, how do we come upon this committee, or were you just invited? I guess, do they invite a school board member generally?
I don't know that.
Yeah, because if we're in their bylaws, I don't see how we lose our seat, right?
So let's have staff follow up on that then to find out. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, it may just be that that particular representative loses their seat. I don't know.
So we'll contact them to find out what does their bylaw actually say. Okay, the next required, Education Foundation of Alachua County Board.
I mean, move on.
Yeah, we keep
Yep.
that with an alternate. It's very important to have a board member on that committee.
Okay, and then FSBA Advocacy Committee Representative?
I mean, yeah, I say we keep that just so we have a voice in what FSBA does advocate for at the, state and federal level. I think that's really important that our voice, matters.
Agree. Then FSBA Legislative Committee Liaison?
Same comment.
And then both of those two, we'd also agreed to have an alternate.
So for the legislative committee, they take from the advocacy committee applicants to the legislative committee, and it is a much smaller committee. So we won't always have somebody on that committee.
Okay.
Because,
Well, they just changed how they did that, yes.
yeah, because it's a subset of the advocacy committee. And we definitely want someone there. They're developing a new strategic plan, and increasing advocacy and participation in these committees is part of that plan.
And even then, they're like developing an advocacy toolkit and everything. So yeah, again, I think all of the resources, it's important for us to have a voice in it.
I'm clarifying in that the strategic plan is developed by the board of directors.
Yes.
which these legislative and advocacy could be part of. The advocacy and legislative committees are developing. We're getting feedback from all 67 districts and coming down to our platform at the state and federal level.
Yeah,
So that's what-
I'm agreeing with you. I think maybe I worded it wrong. FSBA overall, the Board of Directors is working on a new strategic plan. That was part of the meeting we attended last week. Part of that strategic plan is to increase participation from the 67 districts in advocacy. So it is very important that we have a representative and an alternate and have someone there.
Perfect. So I'm adding in, Dr. Arkwell, we'll add a note on that that says about it is a subset of the advocacy, so they must be on the advocacy committee, just for the future, so people understand that.
I have a comment, but I think the member playback wanted to say something.
I just wanted to know if there's is it a yearly appointment by the legislative committee, or how does that work? Like, if you get nominated to be on that committee, is there a time limit for them? No? You just stay on it?
So each board comes up with, or hopefully someone would volunteer to be a part of the legislative committee or advocacy committee. And then when you participate in advocacy, you can say, I would like to also now be on legislative. So it's from that 60, the group of folks, because one of them during the session, you meet every single week. It's a weekly commitment, and they could call meetings in the interim, in between meetings if something comes up and they need to push out information. So,
But there might not be a time when we would be on that legislative committee if we weren't put on it by the advocacy, correct? Isn't that what
Correct,
Dr. Rockwell said?
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Vu or Ms. Surden, I believe that they have 16 members on the legislative committee now.
It is a smaller group. I'm
yeah.
not sure which one. It's not
And-
67, it's a smaller group,
and
so they
they-
can try to get things done.
People from the advocacy committee can apply for the legislative committee, and they try to make sure that they have representation from different areas, different size districts, rural and urban, all of that. So that's
Mrs.
how
Certain,
they
I'm going to add a note in there. I just heard you say that during the advocacy committee, that they can be meeting weekly during session.
Right, they do. They meet weekly. When the state legislative session starts, they
Okay.
meet every single week.
So
And
we're
the
going to
day-
add that into the notes, just so that is,
Right, the commitment.
right, just that people
And it's just an
know.
hour meeting, but they
Right.
do meet weekly.
Otherwise, it's kind of like they decide themselves how often to meet. So right now, it's once a month again till legislative session. So it's like once a month, I believe. It's the third Friday, which is this Friday.
Month, third Friday. Okay, and then the next would be FISBIT trustee. Okay, and then the Gainesville Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization. This is that new committee.
And it's required, and we need a second member as an alternate that would attend the subcommittee meetings. So, or if one member can attend both of the meetings, but what they suggested is you have a second member to do the subcommittee. And I'll have to get the schedule for you. Actually, I'll bring it.
Right. and
Suggested,
That has to be one of us. It can't be an appointee.
Correct, you can't, we can't delegate that.
second member attends the subcommittee. Can I ask you something? There's one of the FSBA ones, I don't know if it's the ones we just covered, isn't one of those items, like, they have to be selected at a different time than November?
That's probably the board of directors. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we need to,
We need to fix the rotation of it, because I just submitted the same names, because I know we've been doing it during reorg, which is in November.
so is that okay?
Yeah, make it so that it does. They normally send it to us in the email, in the newsletter, the notification to go ahead and select your person, so, yeah.
So we would just leave it in November and that person stays on, or we're going to, bring it to the July board meeting to select that particular ones?
I think bring in July, so we're not selecting somebody like 7 months in advance.
Okay, so we'll bring back, that's why we just want to clear up all these kind of things, so we'll put that in red so that we make sure at the July meeting each year annually, you select who your representatives are for these.
Dr. McNeely?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Dr. Patton may have said some of the things that I'm going to say at this point when she started at the very beginning. If we can consider maybe every 2 years or keeping our positions here for 2 years and rolling off after that. That would be my recommendation, especially for one like this one.
I mean, I think that's good, because we generally, having the elections every 2 years, and something that makes sense.
And if somebody, though, nobody else wants to do it, would it be okay that person stays on for another 2 years? Or do we want to try and be sure that there is a new person?
I think we just find consensus
Yeah,
as a board.
okay, all right, thank you. And by the way, thank you for all your insights, because it's very tough for us when we don't know all those insights, and I think it's going to be helpful for any ever new board member in the future to have an idea of what's required of each of these. Okay, so the next required would be Library Governing Board. Dr. McNeely, who gets to be the chair, yay.
Yep, chairing that committee this year. However, I've been on it for a long, long time. I have a lot of obligations with that particular committee, and you would think, you may even ask, why do you meet so frequently? Well, because we have 2 county people on, 2 city, when I say county, meaning commissioners, 2 city commissioners, 1 school board. I don't know why we are limited to 1, but we have a lot of business. You would never believe a tremendous budget that we work with as well, and all of the branches that we are responsible for in Alachua County.
How often do you meet?
We normally meet twice a month if needed, but we meet in the mornings, not in the evening, and it's interesting. It's interesting because we have a lot of citizens who come in, may have concerns or whatever with what's happening in the different branches, and we handle it. Staff, bargaining for salaries, the whole 9 yards. So I'd like to stay. Okay.
Then we have the planning board. The city of Alachua requires appointed by the board, does not have to be a board member.
We do that one the same way we would do with the county. I'm willing to just let staff do that.
Okay.
What I do now is if there's no residential or anything that would impact concurrency, I don't usually attend the meetings, but it's a non-voting spot, so their bylaws say, I read it yesterday.
Non-voting. Okay, then the next, the plan board of the city of Gainesville, required non-voting member appointed by the Alachua School Board.
Same
Same?
as Alachua, yeah. That can be staff, so.
The planning board for the city of Newberry.
I think it's not required. It's the same like with the city of Gainesville.
But I think it's important to just keep on all the plan boards, though.
Okay, and then the school board review, the specialized meetings, the attendance school board review. So, Right, these are just our own ACPS, so staff was not sure how,
It's anything purely operational.
yeah, I think we just take them off.
Be on them. It probably just has been something that's just been slowly building here.
Yes,
Yeah, statutorily, it's not our role, so I think we should stay in our lane.
okay, thank you. School concurrency representative,
Has this ever met? Have you ever done that?
well, so that's why it should be at not, okay.
I mean, I know we normally have a concurrency meeting with full
That's the
board.
point, so if we have a concurrency meeting, that's where everybody would be a participant. Okay, thank you. And then, let's see if there were any other required. One more, the Value Adjustment Board, the last one. So that one we need to leave a person on.
And that one, we can have an alternate, and we need an alternate because they cannot meet without a school board member present. They don't have quorum without a board member.
So on that one, Mrs. Green, we're going to take a note of that must have a board member to create a forum.
Meetings, they didn't have a quorum one time. I mean, they didn't have a member, a person. They weren't able to meet.
Okay, so did we also agree to, so we'll set this up for you in November, these, we have the answer for all the required, and that all the required, we would have an alternate. So when we come in November, we'll ask for a representative and an alternate for all of the required, whether the people stay on, who's on it or not. Okay, so then if we can go back through the list and we'll go through the non-required items. And Mr. Vu, I heard you say if we, and I agree with you, if it's a staff one, we can take that out, but we'll go through it with you all. So the Alachua County Juvenile Justice, we'll find out about that one and bring back, correct? And bring back. And then the next non-required would be the Blunt Center Advisory Committee.
Dr. McNeely, that's you. Do you have any thoughts about whether we should keep that on the list?
I think it's important because I think it's important because we not only work on behalf of Santa Fe College, many things that come up in the community, and it's not required, but I try to be there. And it's only twice per year normally, so I think it's important to have that connection.
Yeah, and twice a year is a pretty limited commitment.
Yeah, I would agree keeping it, especially with the connection with Santa Fe and keeping up the communication.
Would we want to have an alternate for this one?
You can.
What do you think?
If it's only twice a year, might as well try and be sure we have somebody there. Okay, so we'll add an alternate here. Okay, and then the next would be the district positive behavior intervention support. So I would agree that's an operational one. We can just take that off. And then we're on to the Health Insurance Committee, not required.
I'm not voting.
The Howard Bishop Community School.
Let me say something about that, because we are now have added Rawlings,
Right.
and we were just told this month that
Metcalf.
Metcalf will be next. It's a very, I think, very important information, but we have many staff who are already attending that as well. So, no, don't take it off. I will continue to do that, but you have staff from the school system who are there as well.
So if there are,
And we meet monthly.
so if there are three, do we want three separate board members or one board member that attends all three all the time? Well, you have two existing, you're going to have a third.
Well, those are going to be combined, the Rollins and Metcalf and Bishop. It's not,
Okay.
they're not separate.
All right. So we'll keep that, and do we want a alternate for that?
I think you should.
Okay. All right, and the next one would be down to the School Health Advisory Committee, which would again then just be an operational, Systems of Care operational, and then we would go down to the UF Center for Addiction Research and Education Community Advisory Committee.
Again, I'm not sure who has been assigned from staff, but in past, Dr. Edwards, Mrs. Green, they have done so well with that. I don't know if they,
They would go, so we're fine, staff can cover that.
I mean, I'm interested in.
Well, then
still
you
working.
could just go if you want to go, which is different than being the elected, you know.
Okay.
That's another way to look at it. Doesn't mean you can't attend something like that. It's just that you're not responsible to
That's
be
fine,
there.
because they have a lot this week, and I don't know if staff will be working with that group for this week and next week and.
Look at
the week
Dr.
after.
Edwards smiling. The answer is sure. Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion. We will adjust all the charts and bring it back to you and make sure we've captured all your notes. And we have two that we'll follow up on, and just want to say thank you for the future for the school board, just to allow an ease of understanding what committees are. So thank you for your work and letting us know whether they were required or not when we didn't find it online. Okay, thank you, Dr. Rockwell.
Thank you. All right.
Can I ask one?
Oh, yes, Dr.
about
Edwards.
Shack?
It's a Operation District 1.
So moving on to the school improvement school visits.
So the school improvement school visits, you have a list in your materials of the school improvement SI list. These are just, again, the state's designated SI visits. So that is Shell, it is Foster, it is Williams for this year. What we wanted to be sure is just to remind our fabulous board members that, number one, these are not required to have board members on these school visits. I believe actually you were commended as a board as a whole because you do attend them. That's why people mention that, because it is unusual. So what we would like to just have for your consideration is, again, remembering that people are voted in countywide here. We're not single-member districts, so it doesn't really matter if the school per se falls in your 5 areas that you individually represent, but you are voted in countywide. So certainly, if you do want to proceed by continuing to visit, I just throw that out for you to your consideration, one way or the other. You could say, well, these schools are in my area, or you could say we're voted in countywide, therefore any of us could help be the representative. But if we do want to continue having BSI visits by board members, we'd ask that it's 1 per school to just ensure the continuity of who the person is there that sees the growth, is the idea of BSI and their visitations. So with that, it would be these 3, which is Shell, Foster, and Williams, and that again, it's a little different because in November, the year's already started, so I don't know what you would want to do. Would you want to maybe bring this with FSBAs in July so that whoever, if you want to do it, whoever does want to do it would start the year, because I think it would be difficult to just jump in the middle of by November. So I guess the first question is, do we want to still have a board rep at each of the 3 designated, this year 3, last year 2, it'll change. Hopefully there's 0, that's the goal.
I think it's a good idea too, because board members don't want to anyway, and we should do it just so multiple aren't showing up and
Right.
sunshine issues, et cetera. And so for the 3, yeah, I think we should.
Dr.
And then
McNeil.
I like what you have to say, doing it in the July meeting.
I like what colleague Booth just said, but I'm going to keep my 2 that are here, Shell and Lake Forest. Those are the two schools that I've been working with. And yes, we are voted countywide, but Eastern Quadrant, I'm very concerned about, and I'd like to continue with those two schools. Those are the ones that I've been assigned to forever.
That's a new category.
So I have a question about the schedule. The every 2 weeks visits, are those all going to be like the walkthrough, meet and do a data dialogue kind of meeting, or are some of these trainings that we shouldn't be at? Mr. Kuhn might know better than I do.
Right, and are they are every 2 weeks, or are these the state coming in every 2 weeks? Because we should be when the state folks come in.
So the biweekly visits are exactly what you said initially. So that's the BSI team is there, and we typically have a state of the school review of how things are going since the last visit, as well as walking of classes and then a debrief afterwards. Because of the frequency of those visits, some of them, the state of the school and the review of practices won't be as involved as, say, a quarterly visit, just because there's not much that has changed in terms of school data coming in since the last time. So, but yes, at its basic level, those biweekly visits are BSI is coming every 2 weeks, and we're doing walks and debriefs.
And let's just make sure we follow. We gave you a chart that looks different this year because the SI schools are at the top. Those are the only ones that receive those biweekly. What you'll see is there are a list of priorities. So we've never had this amount of help from the state. So the priority schools are many of the schools, like for instance, what Dr. McNeely just mentioned, Lake Forest, because they're on a chart for a reason. So what we also did is make sure you could see that the priority schools, most are monthly. It's about half and half. A monthly check and then a 6-week check. And then to the far right, when we met with the state this summer, based on the data, these were the reasons why these schools were selected. So what we as staff are suggesting is that there's a defined person for Shell, Foster, Williams. And then if one of the suggestions we came up with is that we might want any school that was just an SI school last year, so like Alachua or a Rawlings would also potentially have a board member because they just came out. Everybody else has either been out of that status or they came in for a different reason. So we're not advocating to come up with 13 schools of coverage. We're advocating the top 3 as a definitive yes, and then if there were a consideration of others, it might be the other 2 that just came out of SI status last year.
Certain.
Thank you. So I started doing these visits in 1920, just 2019, 2020 school year. Yeah, I did.
I thought you meant 1920. I thought, wow, that's been a while. Okay.
Yeah, shortly after I came on the board, first because of some incongruity of information about schools that are still here. And so I have a couple that I followed for a number of years. I want to stay with Rollins, and I'll do, I told Dr. O that I would continue with him at Metcalf, so I'll keep those 2. And I'll take Foster or Williams, one of them. I mean, I've had as many as 3 where I had Williams, Lake Forest, and Idlewild. There were 5 or 6 meetings every month, but it was okay. I was glad to be there to do it. But I would like to stay. Like I said, I told Ms. Robbins that I would stay with them at Lake Forest, at Rollins. And Dr. O asked me if I would continue to come to Metcalf, so I'll do that one. And I don't have to do Foster or Williams. If one of you all want to do those, I'm willing to step back and let you all do that. But I would like to stay with those 2 because I have been with them for so long. So picked up Rollins rather last year after they didn't have anyone. So
Because I currently am assigned to Alachua Irby, and I'm okay with keeping those. And then, Foster's down the street from me. I wouldn't mind taking that as well. Unless anyone else, because I know we're still looking for Williams, right?
Williams and Shell. No, you're doing Shell.
McNeely said Shell, yeah.
So we just need Williams.
So when I got the chart of dates from Mr. Kuhn, I realized that I have conflicts with a lot of them. And so maybe it would be best for this year if I was an alternate. So like if one of Dr. McNeely, Ms. Surden, or Mr. Vu couldn't attend
To
a
just
meeting
give you
at
a
those
call.
3 BSI, the 3 Shell Foster Williams, they could call me and ask me if I'm free, because my schedule with my medical issues and my children's has gotten, unfortunately, my mornings are filled with medical appointments.
Okay, and again, staff is at all of these, so if we don't have a board member for Williams, it's fine too. We have our staff there. These were just bonuses adds. Okay, so I have that whole schedule, so thank you for that, BSI. And then I think that wraps that up, Dr. Rockwell.
Thank you, Dr. Patton. Moving on to proclamations.
Just so you know, I'll check my schedule and see if I can, if I can, I'll take those. I didn't look at it because I just thought.
Okay, so in your handout, your packets is the same information that you've seen. We just put it together on just a separate chart rather than the email. So we've looked the last 2 years, what types of proclamations that the board has done. So you have done, you can see Gun Violence Awareness Month in May, Black History Month in February, Hispanic History Month in September, LGBTQ plus in October. And then just wanted to draw to your attention as part of the conversation, PTA did ask about a proclamation for this year just after the month had ended. So those are just so that you would have historical data from just the last 2 years about proclamations. So again, completely whatever the board would like, we just, again, thoughts from staff's end to help in any way, shape, or form. Things like if you would want to talk through either doing proclamations or not. If you do decide yes, then questions of would they be signed proclamations or unsigned proclamations, because we've done that both ways. And then also who reads the proclamation? Would it be the board chair, a member of the board, or the communications department's also more than willing to jump in and help? And then the other 2 last ideas is, would they be on the agenda or not on the agenda? And then the last would be the reorganization meeting, a thought that you could just come to that in November and decide and talk proclamations, a yes and no, and if it is a yes, again, which ones in November? Or you could do it how we're currently doing it, which is it kind of just gets tossed out there. So that's a lot to consider. So should we just go right down in order? So I guess the first question that for your decision is, would you like to continue doing proclamations or not do proclamations?
Ms. Playback.
Personally, I don't think we should do proclamations at all. I think that, that's not part of what we do at the board as far as success of every student. It's who chooses what, when, who we're recognizing. So I'm not for that at all.
Ms. Surden.
Thank you. It's a dicey area. I do think that we should continue to recognize some things. I think they are of importance to recognize. They may tangentially apply to educational improvement. One that I am very, very strongly for is the recognition of Black History Month or African American History Month, especially in light of what's happening with the standards. The second that I am really want to lean in on is the gun violence awareness one. and the secure storage of weapons, because that is becoming, or not becoming, it is an issue in our community, I think nationwide, but especially in our community. On the trust, we have a juvenile justice judge who sits on the children's trust with us, and this week it came up, and she keeps saying that although the past 12 months we've had fewer shootings, like people charged with gun crimes, injuring someone, murders, but what she has seen is a possession of firearms has skyrocketed. So while there haven't been, shootings have been fewer, the theft and of guns from mostly unlocked vehicles have gone up. So I think that the proclamation that we've done and the notification of parents at the beginning of the year, because we've had some guns also introduced in the schools in backpacks by parents. So those are two that I feel really, really strongly about. And I think that they could be unsigned, and I think they could be read. I would go with them being read by staff or a board member. That one I'm open to. Thank you.
Mr. Vu.
Yeah, I'm for keeping the ones that we've been doing anyway, just keep the status quo on it. And then in terms of answering Dr. Patton's questions, I do agree. I think they stay unsigned. They're read by a member of staff because ultimately it is from the school district, not necessarily from the board. And I don't think they need to be on the agenda. They're just, they more or less are an announcement. They're not something that's part of board business. So that's where I stand on it.
Dr. McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we keep them, because I could go either way to say, no, we don't need to do proclamations. But if we do decide as a vote and it's on the agenda for a board meeting, then you're going to open yourself for other proclamations. And I would not want us to say, well, we've only done these 4. No, that's not right. So we really need to consider other proclamations that may come up. And I would hate for us to say no if we are keeping these 4 or 5 or 6. That's my thoughts.
So I mostly agree with Mr. Vu. I would personally add PTA and Asian American and Pacific Islander History Month or Heritage Month. I'm not sure which the exact title is, to the list. I think there might be some that aren't on this list that had been read by staff in the past. Like I think there was a proclamation for school libraries and possibly music in the schools month.
Yeah, so they're not actual proclamations. They just say it's Library Media Services Month, and they recognize some of that. They did a second one since I've been here too, similarly, but not really official proclamations. They just, so that's why we kind of want to.
Yeah,
See, what do we-
sometimes it's just a presentation and
Right,
celebration,
that's
but
how it's been.
I remember at least one where there was a red proclamation with a whereas. I could be misremembering, but I thought I remembered that. The other thing I would say to Dr. McNeely's point is that if we're going to do this, I would think that we put it on our reorg agenda, as this is the list of proclamations, and as a board, we approve the list. We can amend it at that meeting. And then once that list is approved in November, that is the list of proclamations until the next November. So people can't just add them kind of willy-nilly throughout the year. And if there is an objection to something added, like, I don't know, we're not going to celebrate Dog Rescue Week or something like that because it has no relationship to public education. That way we have an opportunity as a board to object to adding that, and that list is finalized. And so it's not like an all-year thing of people coming asking.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion. Yes, Ms. Playback, your mic.
So I think we need some kind of criteria here, because I'm Italian American, and you say Asian Pacific Islanders, or, so nationally, if you look at national proclamations, there is one for Italian Americans, there is from Hispanics, and et cetera. So if we're going to add to it, should we not have a criteria as it relates to the kids or our students to do it? Because we could have a whole list of, if you go by the national proclamations that we have, or, so adding something, I think, could just get very dicey. I agree with Dr. McNeely. I think we have to have some kind of criteria that is warranting us adding something to the list of proclamations if that's the way we're going to go. Keeping something on it, I understand about gun violence, but there's lots of different kinds of violence also. Look what happened yesterday at Santa Fe High School. Gun violence is huge. I totally agree with that. But then again, how did it get on the list? And do we keep it on the list because of what? So maybe we do need to have some criteria that warrants a proclamation.
I'm literally like, it's a teacher who wants a rubric. I totally feel that.
Maybe we need a policy. I don't know, Mr. Delaney, do you know if other districts have a policy or if Neola has something?
I do have some information about that, and my hope was to be able to bring you an example of a couple policies to choose from. Neola does not have a policy regarding adoption of proclamations or the sort of selection criteria. It's my understanding that's a conversation that they have started, but they have not prepared one. I've taken a deep dive about school district proclamations from around the state, and the result from that was that most school districts are moving away from doing proclamations because of the conversation that the board's just had right now. They can certainly be divisive. They are ceremonial. They don't have any legally binding effect. And when schools have really had to, school districts, school boards have had to really engage with a controversial issue about does something get added on or should something be taken off, most boards have, in response to that, gone away from doing proclamations. So I have also looked at proclamations that cities do, and they have some criteria for that, or other local government agencies. The problem is they're not really education focused, and then you open it up to the whole universe. That frankly is a little bit of the situation that Miami-Dade is in. And I think Dr. Patton has some personal experience describing that, but I mean, I think over the course of a year, they have hundreds of proclamations, and they end up spending a lot of time during meetings or prior to the start of meetings where proclamations are read, and the question comes up, if it's not driving the strategic plan, if there's not budgetary funding attached to it, lots of school districts have said that that's not where they want to expend their energy. So I could, if the board directs me to, I could look at maybe what some national districts have done, look outside the state of Florida to try to bring back the type of criteria rubric that the board is requesting. But that's sort of the state of things at this point.
Ms. Surden.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Delaney. Well, given that we've got so much other stuff that's on our plate, I say that we just move on and we just, for the next year, we not do that. Let's focus our energy on things that are of more importance and have more impact on student outcomes. So,
Yeah, I'm fine with that if we couldn't find a policy in the state. Mr. Vu?
Oh, no, just echoing that idea too. That's all I was going to do. It's like, yeah, if that's the case, because it's like, I totally understand Ms. Playback's say, hey, we should have a rubric, we should have some type of clear criteria, but then like you're saying, creating this could just open the door to now us having 100 proclamations, which again would definitely impede on board business. So it's definitely something I would like to see what Mr. Delaney has to come back with us in terms of like what other districts are doing and stuff like that. But if there really isn't something that feels practical, I'm okay with not doing them anymore at all as well, just to be focusing on the board business. But yeah, I'd like to find out more.
Yeah, and I will say, for the Gun Violence Awareness Month, even without the proclamation, we can still send out the safe storage notifications through our communication system. And I think that that is a really, really important thing to do.
I think Mr. Delaney has his light.
Sorry, Mr. Delaney.
And I think, given the feedback that the board is providing, that would not prevent what I would tend to call recognitions that could come from the superintendent. Basically, it's Music in Our Schools Month. The things that are clearly focused on education of students, I think the superintendent probably would be prepared to bring some of those things forward, and they may be in the form of something that's read at the beginning of it in addition to a presentation or whatever. So we're recognizing that it's Music in Our Schools Month, for example.
And I'm assuming that also wouldn't preclude a board member during board member announcements from saying, you know, it's February, it's African American History Month. It just wouldn't be a formal proclamation.
Correct, yes.
Thank you. All right, no one else has anything? Then we are moving on to proposed amendments to Board Policy 9721, and that's Ms. Neal presenting. Thank you, Ms. Neal.
And again, just a couple of leading comments regarding this. Just as a reminder that this is a conversation about potentially creating a policy. It is not mandatory from the state right now, the PEP, the Personal Education Program, just to be sure everybody knows that. It does appear that's coming, but at this moment, it is not mandatory. It also her presentation will include what we know as the FES, Family Empowerment Scholarships, the PEP, Florida Tax Credit, as we know as vouchers. We looked into the fact of, are these students, if you do this kind of a program, is there liability insurance for that? We did check into that. The answer to that is it is. It would be part of our normal liabilities. The students would be there. Things like if you had, in some of this, I know Mrs. Neal will cover, so I'll just only name a couple other ones, but any additional costs our students incur, so would they. For instance, if you did charge for lab fees, they would be charged for lab fees. But before we get to those details, let Mrs. Neal just walk us through a potential, again, suggestion of a policy, but again, at the conclusion of her comments, your questions and answers, the ultimate question is, would you want to move forward on this? And if you do you want it to be a policy, or would you instead just rather it be procedures that we handle internally? You will hear today, she'll talk through that. It's a mixed bag around counties. So with that, Mrs. Neal, thank you.
Thank you. So again, today we're discussing a proposed policy, 9271, the Personalized Education Program Students, or PEP, for discussion prior to a potential first reading. At this time, state statutes do not mandate districts to implement this. It is an optional thing. Closer? You got it. Okay. All right. Do I need to repeat what I said? Okay. This one's kind of... Thank you. Trying this again. Let's see. It's mic number 1 for the booth if you need it. Okay. So currently, there are 10 districts in the state of Florida that have adopted a policy, while 5 others that we found in our research do not have a policy, but do have district-wide procedures in place, including contracts and fee structures as part of their district-wide procedures. Part of the discussion today is to help determine if the board would like us to continue to develop this as a policy or as a district procedure. PEP students, again, those personalized education program students, as well as family empowerment, we call them FES, unique abilities, which is UA in my notes here, students, are students whose instruction is parent-directed while registered with an eligible nonprofit scholarship funding organization. So they are not full-time in a private school. They are typically home instruction students. that are able to use their funding for a variety of services through that. This policy, if we choose to go that way, would outline how students enrolled in the personalized education programs and the Family Empowerment Scholarship Unique Abilities may interact with district programs and activities. It also establishes compliance with state law while outlining the district level expectations and requirements. Under this policy, PEP and FESUA students are eligible to participate in specific activities, including interscholastic extracurricular activities, district virtual instruction programs, career and technical education courses and programs when enrolling solely for those courses, industry certifications, and statewide and national assessments, including progress monitoring through our data analytics and testing office. Importantly, if a course is required for participation in an extracurricular activity, PEP and Family Empowerment Unique Ability students must be allowed to enroll, regardless of full-time or part-time status. Exceptional student education, parents of the PEP and FESUA students who may suspect that their child has a disability or may be gifted can contact the district's ESE department, an office for evaluation, or also contact the Florida Department of Education's Diagnostic and Resources System, also known as FIDLRS, for evaluation. The district will provide testing and evaluation services upon request, but PEP and FESUA students receiving those scholarships are not entitled to FAPE, that free appropriate public education, under IDEA through the district. If a PEP or FESUA student with a disability enrolls with the district full-time, then the district must provide FAPE under our policies 2460, the IDEA, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and other applicable laws. So that would require an enrollment in the district. Parents who are interested in contracting for course participation would be available for grades K through 12. They may contract with the district to enroll in courses on a space available basis. Full-time district students would have priority for course placement, and state class size requirements will be considered as part of the determination of space availability in a course. PEP and FES students do not generate FTE funding through the FEFP program and are state reported in a specific method to ensure they're not reported for FEFP funding. The state has created actually 2 separate school codes to do that state reporting under, one for PEP and one for family empowerment. Course participation would come with the same rules, expectation, and accountability as district enrolled students. Failure to meet those rules and expectations may result in removal from the course or services. And families must enter into a written contract with the district prior to course enrollment and participation. Course fees for the requested and then approved courses. Parents would be eligible to cover those course costs. The cost includes, but is not limited to, the FTE that would be earned, required instructional materials, resources, potentially lab fees, and technology required for the course. Those costs would be covered by the parent and or the eligible student through the education spending account, also known as an ESA. The district would bill parents or work with that scholarship organization to ensure payment prior to enrollment in the course. So it would be a prepayment for the course on quarterly basis. The district's goal is to have all payments go through those ESA accounts and not through individualized billing to families. And that would help to streamline the district's billing process. Payment would be, again, as advance payment made quarterly and is required before enrollment in the course could happen. Payment, again, we would aim to have through those ESA, those educational spending accounts, through their scholarship accounts. If a student drops the course or stops attending the course for any reason, refunds would not be given. Waiver of fees does not apply for students enrolling under PEP and FESUA that would have that billing through the ESA. The board would annually establish per course fees for middle and high school classes based on the cost that would be associated with the FTE students' participation based on the number of periods in a day, and prorated hourly rates for elementary programs. A bit later, in just a couple moments, we're going to talk about some proposed rates for courses at each level, elementary, middle, and high. If fees are not paid, again, enrollment would be canceled with the exception of those courses required for extracurricular eligibility where students cannot be denied under Florida law. We have done some review of what other districts charge for their PEP and FESUA courses. So reviewing those, what we have seen is a wide range of fees for those courses. For example, an elementary ELA class, which is a 90-minute daily kind of class, costs anywhere from $1,000 to $2,125, depending on the districts we've looked at. Elementary math, with an average of about 60 minutes a day, ranges from $1,000 to $1,417. Middle schools have a per course range of about $789 to $1,000. And high school courses across the state have a per course range of $921 to $1,474. We have developed a proposed fee structure, and I'll talk about the methodology of how that was done in just a moment. But what we have proposed at this point is that ELA 90 minutes would be about $1,815. Elementary math and science, again, that's approximately 60 minutes a day, would be $1,210. Elementary writing, special areas, social studies, those are average 30 to 45 minutes a day, would be approximately $605. Middle school courses for a year-long course would be $1,537, and the semester course would be half of that. At our high schools, we have to look at it in two ways. We do have a block schedule and the 6-period day schedule. So in our 6-period days per course, it would be 1,664. Semester course, again, half of that. And then at our block schedule, because those are 4 instead of 6 periods in a day, longer classes, those kind of things, that would be a more expensive course at 2,494, or again, half of that for the semester. The methodology that was used for determining the proposed fees is based on the 2023-2024 published cost reports, which include weighted FEFP funding as well as personnel and facilities cost. So we were trying to take all of those things into account. And then it was averaged by level, elementary, middle, and high, to get the kind of that hourly or per course rate. And we did add an increase of 3% to account for increases in funding since the 23-24 school year. So in summary of that, and then we'll definitely open for that discussion and questions, the proposed policy balances student access, parental responsibility, and compliance with the Florida laws. It ensures that the PEP and FESUA students can engage in key district opportunities and courses while clarifying the funding, enrollment, and accountability expectations. So I appreciate your time. I know that was an awful lot in a short little bit, and definitely am open to any questions and discussion. And our team, in general, will be able to answer some of those questions as we move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Neal. Mr. Vu?
Yeah, this is for Attorney Delaney. Is the policy we have before us just the straight Neola template policy?
That's my understanding, correct.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's my first question, then I'll let my colleagues go.
So I have a question. We currently can bill FTE for students who are homeschooled who don't have a scholarship. Is that in policy or procedure right now?
I don't know if it's in policy or procedure, but it is in state statute.
It's a procedure, to my understanding.
Because if we're doing that by procedure, I wonder if we should also do this by procedure, just because either that or add a policy
incorporate the
for
homeschool,
that.
yeah.
Either include both in our policy or have them both by procedure. My other question is with the price for the block scheduling, those blocks meet every other day, correct?
No, it depends. It would depend on the school. So the Lofton block is a straight 5-day-a-week block.
Okay.
The Hawthorne block has some classes that are 5 days a week and others that are on an AB rotation. So it would depend on the course.
So for the blocks that are 5 days a week, I understand this price, but for the ones that are on an AB rotation,
Be the half.
It would,
Right, half.
okay.
It would be
That's
half.
what I wanted to check on.
Yes, ma'am. No, that's a fantastic clarifying question.
Yeah, it's
Help me,
very
help me with that then. Tell me why would a block that meets every other day be half of 2494?
Because of the 180 school days, that course would only be meeting 90. Because they
half
meet
the amount of
on an A, so they say the regular week is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday of that week are A days. Tuesday, Thursday are B days. And the following week, the A days are Tuesday, Thursday, and the B days are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So they only meet half of the school days.
And they take all 8 courses concurrently, correct?
They would have an A course, it
But
depends on
like
what
at
they
the
would
same
sign up
time
for.
is what I mean, like
Right.
they're taking them throughout the year, all 8. It's not a 4x4 where they're taking 4 one semester, 4 another.
Correct. If it's an AB day, it is the full year. But again, it would meet 90 of those 180 days.
So what I'm hearing is like they have one period where they meet every single day, and I know for some places it's usually like reading or math, depending on what the student needs the most help in, right? And so that's the type of course where it would be like the double rate, more or less. Okay.
So,
No, go ahead.
okay. So I take, I'm trying to be measured in my words here. So what we're doing here, this is a very slippery slope. For the reason being is we're trying to, or what districts are being proposed or presented with is trying to break apart an educational product and put it on the marketplace like it's something we can sell, right? It piecemeal. And it's hard to, you can't do it like that. Even, I was listening to Ms. Neal, she said, if I understood her correctly, she said that they used the 23-24 costs, weighted FTE, for personnel, facility. They then escalated it by 3% to account for the increase in funding. So I can kind of see a little bit of that methodology. I'm glad there's some methodology, but the increase in funding, the 3%, has not been sufficient in all cases to cover the increase in cost. That's been a dilemma that we've had in trying to meet things. So that's caused us in having to hold back resources and what we could offer to staff. But I don't think I think that if they're going to say we're truly in the marketplace and saying that there's this competitive and public schools need to compete, well, the public school has the Cadillac, but folks want it priced at the Ford Escort model price. And so if you're coming to the public school and you're wanting, you shouldn't want to get, we should not be offering our services at, if it's a class of 1/6 of what it is, because that's not, you can't just break it up. We don't just get to say, it's like the reason why we've been trying to become more efficient in how we operate when we have schools that are under-enrolled. There's a certain amount of cost, fixed costs and all that it takes to offer that. When we have certain number of students who may have higher need, it costs more money to do that. We have situations where math and science, folks who can do that, they command more money in the marketplace than, I hate to say it, like reading or something like that, right? Even though it's important, right? IT, technology, CTE, we're having a challenge in recruiting people to offer those classes because of the cost of wages, right? We can't compete in the private sector. So I don't think that we, one, should be trying to break this up and just give it away at 1/6 or half of the block schedule, whatever. No. If we're going to truly be in the marketplace and be competitive, it's what somebody is willing to pay, not what it costs us. You don't go to a Mercedes-Benz or the Cadillac dealership and say, well, over there they're selling Hondas for that amount. This is what you should offer your car for. No. If you want this, there's a certain amount of prestige and honor and what we offer and what we put the value on our product of. And I think that's what we should offer our product for. I don't think it should be at 1/6 or at 90 minutes. There's a premium on coming to public school. There's a premium, and trying to break it apart, because if we continue to try to play along in this marketplace. This is a losing proposition for public schools. We're not gonna win this. I've heard some people say that some money is better than no money. I disagree with that because we're giving up an incredible amount to offer this in the marketplace. When we look here, I talked with a colleague last week at our FSBA Board of Directors meeting, and so she was in Washington County, and she gave me it was like a ridiculously low amount. She said they were charging for an elementary class like $500 for that. And so I showed her the scholarship amounts from the Step Up thing, and I said, for your county, an elementary student, K-3, gets $9,128, and she looked at me like, wait, what? And I said, yeah, and that class costs you more than $500 to provide them, because there would be no ELA, there'd be no social studies block if you just got $500 from everybody that's in that class. That wouldn't be that. You gotta have the building, you got insurance, and our property and casualty insurance. I've only been a FSBIT trustee for 2 years. 3 years now. This is the 3rd year. But since I've been a trustee, the property and casualty insurance has almost tripled since since I came on the board, and just the cost of doing that. So for me, I'm okay with it being we don't have to participate, and I really don't think we do anything of this nature until the state requires us to do so. It's kind of like the charter co-location type thing. I think we should not be like really putting public school in jeopardy, defunding it. This is a way of defunding and participating in that marketplace that we're going to really hurt not just our district, but public schools as a whole. And we just cannot get into wholesale just like saying, oh, we're going to price out our classes for what it costs us to provide it. That's not how business operates. I mean, there are some loss leaders in grocery stores where they get people to come in, but for things that are in demand and in the marketplace, people pay a premium for that. So I don't know how my colleagues, and
I think what I hear you saying, Mrs. Certain, just make sure I can follow, what you're suggesting, that if the board so chooses to move ahead and offer something like this, like a hot demand course is robotics, an AP course would be science, that to look at those, and that could be, because we did see, when we looked at Orange County, it was a flat 1,000. We looked at Brevard or Broward, and theirs was all over the place, but it could be for that same reason that it's all over the place, that certain courses you could pay more. And I think, too, what you're pointing out, that this is not the parent necessarily paying. This is the state giving parents money. So it's not like it's just out of their pocket. It's extra money they've been given.
Yeah, and like the way I see it too is that Ms. Certain, is that I think like your argument makes the assumption that more students will leave if we offer this. And to me, I don't necessarily think that's true. It really just, to me, is like, if a student's not going to be a full-time public school student, I don't think what we do in terms of like this is really going to affect that. So the only way I'm seeing it is, are we getting more money into the system, and then are we incentivizing possibly increased participation in our public schools? And that's what I would like to see. And again, that just comes from my own experiences, like talking with a lot of folks who do homeschool their families. And I don't even think this is a partisan thing in terms of who homeschools their families, especially in Alachua County. It's all over the map, just in my own experience. And so, I really in favor of actually having this policy, but hearing what Dr. Rockwell said, I think too we should have one for what we do for our homeschool students, because you could be homeschool and you could be in FLVS Flex for like 6 classes, right? And then you could take that one class here. We're already being shortchanged just by the way the law is set up, whereas this allows us more to control the funding. Whereas with a lot of these homeschool students, it's like sometimes they're getting 1/7, 1/8 of an FTE, and it really can be a losing proposition. Whereas like this, again, we are way more in control of what we would get. So I do see what you're saying about like the increased fees. Like some of these should be premiums, like taking a biology class that has a lab component should have lab fees, right? I think taking an AP class should have some type of AP fees for that same thing. Like if you're going to take an AP class with us, you should have to prepay for the test as well. What's the point of taking the class if you're not going to sign up for the AP exam, et cetera? And then in just my conversation with Dr. Patton, just the one thing I still would like to know from the state is, let's say we do have kids enrolled in certification courses, national tested courses like AP, IB, ACE. What does the increased FTE funding, where does that, do we still get it, right? And then for the teacher bonus for passing that national test, does that teacher still get it? I think that's really important too, to even just let our teachers and our site, leaders know when they are having these students in their class, is there that increased financial benefit as well?
And that's a question we do have up to the state, because we had the same question. And to Mr. Vu, when we talked with Miami-Dade, they have like 8,000 or 9,000 kids. It's a very large district too, but their point to us, their superintendent said to me, you'll also be surprised, some kids, they're not trying to do this to get all 8,000 kids back, but a number of kids did come back, because what happened is they stepped on the high school campus, they're like, oh, I don't go to homecoming, I don't go to the prom, I don't have these other things. So that wasn't the intention, but it has become that a couple, here and there, some of the kids have come back full time.
And that really does track with a lot of like what I've heard from parents. Again, just that comfortability of homeschooling. Even I myself, like, please don't ask me to teach an AP science to anybody, right? And so I definitely would send my kid to high school just for that reason, and then we could get these students back full time, right? And especially at the high school level, where we receive less funding per student at the high school level for some reason from the state. I think that's really important. Like the FTE multiplier for a high school student is slightly lower. It's not 1, it's less than 1.
It's like a 0.998 or 989 or something. It's
for
a
some
very
reason-
small percentage less, but it is recalibrated. Our high school FEFP is lower.
I agree with Mr. Vu and Dr. Rockwell. I think we should have a policy in place, so we have it there once the state says we do it, rather than be caught behind the 8 ball. I also think that the participation in certain district activities, I think a lot of this is mute, because for a lot of career technical courses, you have to do it all 4 years, get accepted through it, and I know that some CTE programs won't let somebody take a singleton class in CTE. You have to go through the whole thing. So I don't know how many kids would do that. And also those industry certifications are tied into that last year of being in. So I don't know if that's something that's really going to impact us in that regard. I do agree that these kids should do extracurricular student activities, have that opportunity. And are we billing them to do those like after school activities, or are they allowed just to do that? How does that work?
They already have that right, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, they have the
they
right,
already have the
right?
right.
So that is just something you put it, as far as what they're allowed to do here, as far as that's concerned, correct?
And those after-school activities are not billed.
Okay, so that's something.
Those clubs, et cetera, are not something that we're billing.
With the exception of something that might be like a co-curricular course, let me give you the example, marching band. To be in the marching band, some schools say you must be in band during the day, so that you can't join the marching band unless you are co-enrolled with us in a PEP course or a home school. But short of that, they mostly can have the rights. And even in a private, minus the fact if their school has that same sport, they cannot.
Okay, and the other thing, I would like to, if we ever get statistics on how many kids are actually coming into a high school for an AP class versus going to Santa Fe. I know personally that in my private school, and also when I was at GHS, a lot of kids choose to go to Santa Fe for these AP classes, or they do it virtually, rather than come into our schools to do it. So I wonder how much that is impacted. I think more high school students are doing it through Santa Fe because of how it is on their transcript. I mean, there's a lot of factors. Or they go to UF for some of their virtual class, their classes. So I see this maybe more younger kids would be doing it more than the high school. I agree with Ms. Certain that we have to have availability, but not a loss in our financial aspect for this. So if kids want to come back here, hey, we love it. But it's not just like she said in that other district, that we're not making any money. It's not a making money, but it's actually supporting the teachers, because it's really hard for a teacher to have this one kid that comes in one period a day and doesn't have the camaraderie of the class and being part of that whole climate. And it's hard on the teacher also to have them be part of that environment. So I think we need to make it that way.
So I would agree with Ms. Surden in terms of, looking at what the PEP scholarship, what the scholarship amount is, rather than trying to figure out what the FTE plus facilities plus, like, I think we look at if an elementary school student is getting $9,000, the instructional day is approximately 6 hours. So we divide that by 6, we get an hourly rate of $1,500, and I'm just, I know that's an approximation, but I think that we do it that way, because that's the amount that they're getting, that the state has determined this is what all the monies the public school would have gotten for you. So rather than guessing, we can base it on that.
So we can put together a proposed fee structure that would do that also, so we can compare the two.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I do think that in terms of, waiting for the state or doing this now, I think there's a benefit to doing it now, because students who enter the FES scholarship program will access public school in some way, a lot of them. And if we are not offering it physically on our campuses or through Alachua eSchool as a part-time option, then they're going to go to Florida Virtual School. And they're going to be giving their PEP money from Step Up, or I forget the name of the other one, directly to Florida Virtual School instead of to our district. And like Dr. Patton said, there is a chance that if a student starts coming to a school for 1 class, 2 classes, they start making friends. They realize the school environment isn't some scary or negative thing, and suddenly we have another full-time student. That could happen. But more importantly, if we're not offering to take the scholarship, there are other options that are. Florida Virtual School is just one of them. There's also OutSchool will take it.
Other school districts have online schools, so they're already charging, for
Yeah.
classes, so.
Yeah, that's true. Other school districts, online schools will sometimes take students from out of county. So we're going to be giving that FTE, or scholarship money, but I mean, it ultimately is like we're giving that to OutSchool, to Florida Virtual School, to Hillsborough County's virtual school, to whatever, and I'm just making that up, but to whatever other option it is, when that money could have been coming to our district, and a student could be building friendships and relationships locally. And I think even if they don't come back to our school, I think that's important. Like, we're here to serve children, and I think giving them that option is important.
I think that it's an important key, and one of the things that one of our cabinet members will sometimes talk about is how education has become like the Expedia model. You shop around, you go to this hotel chain when you want to be in this area, and you go to this hotel chain for a different, and you do this one for the cost. And so it really has, a lot of our things have become kind of that Expedia model, or the Amazon shopping, or the whatever kind of thing you want to think of, that there's so many variety of options that, this may be one more option that may bring some of our kids back even.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because to me, it's like the market's just sitting there and we either are choosing to participate in it or not. And to me, there's just way more positives in participating.
I do have another piece of data I'm going to share with you, if that's okay as well. Last night, we just received the comparison files that we need to do for the November payment. So prior to any comparison, so we have not done that yet because we just got the files last night, I looked at the counts of that so I could tell you how many students we currently are showing in Alachua County's list for us to do comparison. Currently, there's 1,032 PEP participants. There's 3,772 family empowerment equal opportunity. Those are the ones that are typically in the full-time private school options, and 2,110 in the family empowerment unique abilities. So that's a total of 6,914 students that are using these scholarship and voucher options. Again, we haven't done the comparison file yet, so that's, based on the raw data. But that, I think, to put it in perspective, we're looking at almost 7,000 students that total that are using the vouchers. Of those, approximately 3,100 could be eligible for this option. In the district, I don't have that count sheet with me right now. It is just over 24,000, I want to say, but I don't have that right in my hand, so I don't want to give you that. Not including charters, correct, just in ACPS schools, traditional, right?
Ms. Neal, you said,
And you say unique, what that,
As unique students, right, each student counting once, and not not duplicated students. By unique students is how I mean that.
I had a question. You said there are like just over 3,000 students who are what? I thought the PEP could come to us. I thought the EO and unique abilities were used at private schools.
The unique abilities are basically like they're the home education, parent directed education. So the unique abilities and the PEP is what we're talking about for this possibility. The FES equal opportunity, the EO students are those that are their scholarship is basically going toward a private school for the most part.
And the unique abilities, the FES UA is significantly higher.
It can be. It is based on the matrix of the student. So if the matrix, because we help with those IEPs already for some of those students, if the matrix of the student is a higher matrix, then what the family receives is a higher amount. If it is an equal matrix, maybe it's a 504 student or a student who does not have that higher matrix as an IEP ESE student, then it is the base funding.
And how does that work for students who never got a district evaluation with an IEP, like a student who submitted a private evaluation saying that their child is autistic or whatever? What matrix value would they be given?
I would need to go back to our ESE department to confirm that, but I believe that we do still do those and transition those into district IEPs because FES requires a matrix level. But we would have to do that. So it would be a private eval would be considered by our ESE team to create the IEP and matrix level. Is that accurate, Dr. Edwards?
Okay, because I didn't realize that was the case. I know that you can just submit an evaluation. They have a list of diagnoses that qualify for UA, and they can be school-based or private.
And if they do not come through the district for an evaluation, they're given that base funding, that base level.
Okay. Because I'm wondering if we need to have a different fee structure for students on the UA, the FES UA, because I assume, if a student does have that higher matrix level with that higher level of funding, they're a student who will need more support in our classroom as well, and we may need that additional funding in order to provide that.
Dr. Alachua, I think if the majority of the board decides to adopt policy for this, I would recommend against putting fee structure in the policy because it takes too long to change and update that. That should be, the fee structure should be a procedure because
Yeah, I
that could
agree with
change.
that.
So I think that would be separate from the policy. I think the policy would be operational type things, how we would take students in, payments and all of that stuff like that. I think we should look at Dade and some of that. There are a couple counties that I looked at that actually have a policy. It's not that many of them that have adopted a policy. Actually, I don't think Dade has a policy. They just have operational procedures and they have like a costing out. But I think the costing of it, the fee structure should not be part of the policy because of the variability in it all. So.
I do want to point out on the top of page 2 of the proposed policy and what was discussed a few moments ago, it does say in the proposed policy, so I want to make sure I'm prefacing that it's the proposal, that if it is determined that a child meets eligibility requirements for ESE, his or her parents may, 1, enroll the child in the district so that the child may receive appropriate instruction and services as an ESE student, 2, choose to educate the child in a home education program, or 3, choose to access other educational options provided by Florida law. The district is not obligated to provide ESE instruction and services to the PEP students, and that would include the FESUAs.
Can you tell me how many kids we have in charter schools?
It is approximately, and I can send you all that, I can give Dr. Patton that school count sheets. It's approximately 2,000.
2,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so 2,000 charter plus 6,900 in the other programs, right? So that's 6, 7, 8, almost 9,000 students that are not in ACPS schools.
Plus approximately, and I know this number is not going to be accurate, but approximately 2,000 homeschool enrolled, like registered with the district as homeschool students.
Oh, 2 more thousand. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the beginning of the school year or over the summer, when we sent out those calls, that company that we had trying to bring students back into our school system,
K-6, K-12.
who did we target? Who did we send those out to? The kids that are in the charter, the kids that are these 6914, the homeschools, who did we send it out to?
So that, we're still in some review process for that, so I don't have outcomes of that quite yet for you. But the targeted list for that was what was sent to that company was the last 3 years of withdrawal data. So they were looking at withdrawal codes that were not graduation codes, those kind of codes. So they were looking at all the withdrawal data, and they were targeting students based on those students who had withdrawn and not returned to the district in the last 3 years. So it was based solely on withdrawal data. They were also targeting through some of their campaign family members of students there too. So were there younger siblings? Were there those kind of things as they were talking with the families for that? So they were primarily using withdrawal data.
Okay, thanks.
But Case and K-12 started after school started, right? It was
They
like-
started in July.
Oh, it was in July.
So they were doing a preschool campaign, and then their second focus was based on students who did not enter. Students we expected to enter that did not enter was their phase 2. And again, we're in review of all of that right now, so hopefully we'll have some data for you coming up by the end of the year, at the end of the calendar year.
Trying to see if, does anyone have any other questions or comments for Ms. Neal?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is the board direction then to proceed with policy or procedure?
If we're just going to go down the line.
Yeah,
We're just going to go down the line. For me, it'd be policy, right? Proceed with policy and then just take the recommendation from Dr. Walkwell and just formalize.
Oh, okay. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, proceed with policy, but then add what Dr. Rockwell was suggesting about just emphasizing, what the rights of homeschool families are as well, because it is in statute, it's something that's in procedure, but if we're going to make this policy, which I do think we need to do, we should add that as well.
Mr. Delaney.
I apologize for the confusion and interrupting your train of thought there, Mr. Vu. I would just reframe the question because I think it's clear that there's going to be procedures with cost factors and things like that, because it sounds like that's the will of the board. That would certainly be my recommendation, not to include the specific costs in a policy.
Right.
So there's going to be an underlying procedure. The question I think to the board is, do you want an overlay policy for this or not?
Thank you for that clarification of my
Right.
question.
Still yes.
All right. Ms. Surden.
You turned it off, Tina?
I'm iffy. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Go on.
So I think if we're going to do it, it should be in policy. And as I stated before and Mr. Vu stated, we should add in homeschool students who are not getting the FES as well, that what's in state statute already. Ms. Playback.
I agree. I think it should be a policy.
Dr. McNeely? Policy.
So I believe then our intent would be to bring it for first read, probably November?
Right.
Is that what we were talking?
Right.
And then, Mr. Delaney, I have a question, I'm sorry, a policy question. Is there a separate Neola policy related to homeschool? Or would the request that the board members are asking to add a homeschool policy, would that need to be incorporated within this? Or is that a separate policy? And that might be more that we have to research, but I just wanted guidance there.
I don't recall a homeschool policy off the top of my head, and whether Neola has a template for that we just haven't adopted. But I think the simple way to handle that is we could just cross-reference that policy if there is one in this policy.
Okay, thank you.
So titling it will be important, because otherwise it will be just implied it's a PEP. But we can work on that.
Right, before we come back for first read, I think we'll have to look at the title also.
Oh, and Ms. Neal, I'm a thing about spelling. So in that title, personalized education, should that be program and not program? You see where it says,
Oh, I see it at the top.
It's just a
it should be,
typo.
it's just a,
I'll get that to
sorry,
Ms.
I'm a
Talbot.
spelling-
No, thank you.
It's harder to notice when it's all in caps.
I'll get that to her.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Neal, and I'm going to recess us for a 10-minute break. I know. Everybody was like, can we break? I was like, I was planning to.
I almost done with this copy, so.
Our workshop is now back in session. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent search. So we have several decisions to make on that search. One of them is whether we want it to be a state search or a national search. Another one is whether we want to go with FSBA, with whom we have an existing relationship, or do a request for proposals and see what other search organizations are out there. And the third is the timeline for the search and whether we want to do that now or do that at a later date. But that is kind of dependent. Dr. Patton has a contract through the end of this year. So I want to ask Dr. Patton whether she would be willing to extend that depending on the search timeline we determine today.
So I would entertain staying an additional year if it was needed.
Okay.
Desire.
And so, one of the things we need to talk about is whether our district is in a position right now to do a search and attract good candidates, because Ms. Surden sent us all a packet from FSBA that discusses, readiness for a search. And I'm not going to express my personal views until everyone else talks, but after reading that, I have some thoughts. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. Mr. Vu.
I just put some chocolate in my, but okay. Yeah, going over that, if I'm just answering the question, are we ready? I would say at this moment, no. Partially because I don't feel like we're in a state where we necessarily would attract the desired candidate. I still think we have a lot of work to do for that in terms of just stabilizing district operations. Even than just that, it's perception, right, of ACPS, of the board at large. And so I think if you're going to ask me that question, yeah, no, we're not ready right now, but do we need to start the search now and go through all these other steps? I would say yes. And so my ideal state is to just create and craft those expectations for the public. In general, I like the idea of, right now, Dr. Patton's staying on, extending the contract for another year, and then starting the search, figuring out what firm we want in terms of like FSBA versus doing an RFP and hearing those out, debating as a board whether it's just internal candidates within the state of Florida or we are reaching out into the national, right? And then roughly, if we're doing this search, when would that start date be? Are we going to ask for like, hey, July 2027? Ideally, that's when the start date would be, or are we asking for something beyond that, before that, sometime concurrent with Dr. Patton possibly for like a January 2027, concurrent with Dr. Patton until they officially take over in July 2027. So it's, quite a few questions, but that's where mine's at right now.
Dr. McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, let me say, I bought some old newspapers with me today based on what we have said before about searches and people's comments from my colleagues who are sitting here as to what was said way back and what we need now. Dr. Patton has certainly brought change to this district, no doubt about that. And she's helped move our district forward. However, colleagues, it's time to take the next step. Our students, staff, and community deserve the stability and long-term vision that come with a permanent superintendent. Dr. Patton has made meaningful progress, but it's time to have the search and bring in a leader who will ensure lasting growth as well as stability for our district. She knows, because I say it all the time, I appreciate the leadership and improvements made under Dr. Patton. However, to build on this progress, our district now needs a permanent superintendent who can provide consistent direction and long-term planning. Some of you ran on that promise to the citizens, and we have not certainly one more time pivoting backwards than what you stated. This board should remain committed to selecting a leader who will build upon the progress made and advance our shared goal of academic excellence for all of our students. As a district, Dr. Patton, we are grateful, more than grateful, not just because we got this gift today, but for your leadership and dedication. She has shown many, many times during this period of transition. I hope you're listening. Her efforts have brought positive change, and you've helped guide important initiatives forward. As a board member, however, I remain committed totally to ensuring that we choose the right leader to continue the progress that we've made, and we've made a lot, and to guide the Alachua County Public Schools toward an even stronger future. I'm not standing, but I stand in my conviction that Dr. Patton has done wonderful work. But you know what? I could go back and start with Dr. Boyd. I could say Dr. Clark. I could say Mrs. Clark, Dr. Simon, Mr. Andrew, and then come to this individual, Dr. Patton. But when we make promises to our citizens, to our teachers, to our staffs, and you know what they are without me saying those things, you know what they are, then I can't see how we can say, oh, we can't do this now. I asked Dr. Patton last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, would you consider being the permanent superintendent and put your hat in the pile with all of the other hats that will show up? And my answer was, her answer to me was, no, I'm not interested in that. I have many other things in my life to handle and to do, and she does. But I'm not willing, and I'll say it today, I'll say it to the community, and I'll say it elsewhere, that we need now to do the search as promised. Go back to your papers and take a look at what you said and what you ran on. And certainly nothing against what this superintendent has done, completed, and still has marvelous plans through June of 2026. We need to move forward. We need to take the next step. And even though many of us may not have agreed with many other of our former leaders, we have come a long way. And because I'm the longest serving board member, I know for a fact where we are, where we've been, and still what we are going to have to do. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be back to talk more, but I'm going to let other colleagues speak. I know that Dr. Patton has a 1 o'clock meeting, but she may be a little late today because we are going to continue to talk.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. Ms. Surden.
Thank you. So my votes and my promises to the community aligned with what my vision was at that time, but they were overruled back then. And so when you make a promise, a campaign promise, I did think that we needed to make have a search. And the votes didn't align with my view. Dr. Rockwell and myself had that meeting. I shared the video from, brought in our CEO of our state association to help explain the process to those of us who had not sat in the board member seat to make that decision. And there were 3 votes that went other ways. Some of the same arguments or points that you made today were expressed at that time, Dr. McNeely, for staying with that current person, and that's what happened. Okay, so we're here now. I went through I rewatched the video myself. I didn't ask you guys just to do that yourself, but I did go through the document that was shared by FSBA with us and that I attached to the email with you all. And like colleague Vu, a search does need to happen because we need to find someone, but at the timing and looking through where we are, our district is positioned right now, we're not in a position to attract, in my view, a candidate of the caliber of what we need. We are, one thing I think would be a very big knock on getting someone is us being under this current order from DOE. That is a real big cloud. I think also in the September 24th Board of Education meeting, you all heard Dusty Sims in his recounting, and he brought up that we had schools in and out of turnaround status. So that really, like, some of his comments really bugged me. So I went and I called him and asked him to have a meeting with, if he would talk with me about his comments. And he did. And I said, one of the things, the comments you made, Mr. Sims, that really concerned me, and I was trying to figure out why, because I first met him at a school improvement meeting, a BSI meeting at Lake Forest. And he's about the schools in and out of turnaround status. I'm like, we're not the only district. And one of the things he said to me was, well, yeah, I said that that because you all have and you are not doing things that would focus on student success. There are a lot of distractions. And I said, well, what are those distractions? And he said, 7, 8 superintendents in 12 years. There's this constant change, a lack of focus and continuity. That lack of focus and lack of continuity, he feels, or he would say, distracts and has negatively impacted student achievement. I couldn't argue with that. That was also an argument that was made by the 3 people who voted to stop the search the last time. Oh, we need to stay with this person. We need to stay so that we can help the district. And then those same 3 people abruptly threw us into this tailspin. So I am for doing a search. I think it has to be done in a very orderly manner so that we can do what's best for the district, its operations, and attract a good person that can come in and build upon the work that has begun by Dr. Patton, some changes and things. A new leader may come in and have a different point of view, and it would be very disruptive and I think very frustrating to staff to get on a different road with the next school year if we were to start a search and replace, since Dr. Patton has said she's willing to stay, will consider staying an additional year with us. If you all listened at the video, you heard that Andrea said that for the most part, any search now, because of the internet, is not just a state search. When you put it out there, it would get, be known most likely outside of the state of Florida. But how far wide you cast the net to get candidates would be impacted by where we advertise. If you went to Ed Week, that'd be something more national. If you wanted to stay statewide, you could, do it in just the administrator type groups and, on how they put out ads. But And then looking at the timeline of where we are, I kind of went back and pulled out the initial contract that was negotiated or agreed upon, voted on by the board, and then the addendum that was approved, I think it was January 21st of this year, and then which takes the her through June of 26. And so we decided to do that one more year type thing of an addendum to that. It puts it at June of 27, so that would put us at trying to look at doing a search about 3 to 6 months out. You know, Andrea said in the video, like 3 months you could do a search, but I think we really should probably pad in there some additional time for hiccups in a transition period. So my vote would be, or my, you know, what I would lean towards would be an additional year of consideration of keeping Dr. Patton on and looking at staying. I would prefer to stay with our state association to do it versus doing an RFP based on cost and just familiarity with in that space with Florida and procuring leaders. But we would possibly start doing, you know, develop and review the job description in that December, January timeframe with the hope of having the job posted, us agreeing upon criteria and posted in that January, February, and then having someone on site to be able to have a transition and an overlapping period before an extended period of work, you know, contract period with Dr. Patton. They could work together for, I don't know what's customary, if it's 4 to 6 weeks. You know, this past time here in November when Dr. Patton came on, I don't know if you and Mr. Andrew had any time of overlap, but we had to choose a person, and we were extremely fortunate to get someone who had worked as a superintendent and had experience in working in a high-performing district. It's one thing to work in a district and to be an administrator, but all I can say is we were extremely fortunate to be able to get somebody in a couple weeks' time with the experience that she had to come in. And no leader, you know, I've had people call me and say, oh, she doesn't understand the framework and the layout of our community and this, that, and other, and people feel intimidated. That's the same, I've heard the same complaints with every single superintendent before I was on the board, as well as the ones that since I've been here. But I will say that in knowing how to operationally run a district and interact with the board and to try to implement and put things into place that would positively impact student achievement, I think I see those qualities, and I think she's given us a framework for how to structure a job description and what we would like to see in a next leader that could set the district up for future success. And so I hope I've answered your questions, Dr. Rockwell. I think that we wait. I think the search, I would prefer that my preference would be that we stick with our state association to lead the search. And I think it's a misnomer to say a national search. I don't see us as having an internal candidate right now that would compete for the position. I think we would advertise, and the folks would, apply, be they in state. I wouldn't say that we would turn down a candidate if they applied and they weren't in the state of Florida. But I think, as Andrea said in the video a couple years ago, that all searches are pretty much now national because of the internet. So I think I got all of your questions. Did I get them all?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Surden. Ms. Playback.
Okay. All right. So Dr. Patton and I have a great relationship. Even though I've only been on the board since April, I have been intimately involved knowing about our superintendent since I came on the district in 2003. I actually was chair of the DAC when we interviewed Dr. Roberts and recommended him to the district. And I know it's a really long process, and it's a big responsibility. 3 of us are up for re-election in 2026. So we might not even be part of the process, but I think we owe it to be part of the process. I think that we know what we want. We've seen what we want. We've worked with an individual that has impeccable credentials and that has been a great leader for us. I see no reason not to start a search and put it out there, because we can't say what we can't have or what we might not have or what isn't available, because we don't have to accept anybody that we don't think is good. But as a board, we know what's going on in our school district. And if we have potentially 3 new board members come next August, then it's starting all over again. And then you're going to start a search, and those 3 board members might not really be in a good position to make a qualified decision. I don't care who we use. That I'll leave that to people that have more knowledge about that than me. I know that Dr. Patton has had to do a lot of cuts budget-wise. She knows where she is as far as that is concerned, but I know our staff is so tired, is taking on so much responsibility, and they're doing it because they're committed. They're committed to us. They're committed to the school district. But I think it's kind of nice to see what individual might bring what we need to our district. And we can't say, I've seen all these superintendents come and go. I know what people say about Alachua County. I know we're under this mandate from the state, but maybe the state would appreciate us taking that step and looking to see what's out there rather than not taking that step. Dr. Patton is a professional. She's a alumni like I am. So I appreciate that. And Dr. Patton is going to facilitate change regardless, whether we start now or start later. She's not going to change the way she approaches our district. She's not going to say, oh, Mrs. Playback, I don't like you anymore. I don't like what you say because we're starting a search. She would never do that. She's a professional beyond belief. But I also think we have to show the community that we are trying, because we have a lot of things on our plate coming up. And if we just kick it down the road another year, then what if we can't find somebody in 3 months or 6 months? And Dr. Patton wants to get on with her life. She needs to travel. She needs to do things that she wants to do. And we have been extremely fortunate to have her here. So my opinion is start the search, see what happens. And if we don't get anybody, we don't get anybody and we continue. But why say we won't get anybody if we don't try?
Thank you, Ms. Playback. So,
No, no, it's Dr. Rockwell's time, but I'm coming back.
so I have a lot of things to say. First of all, going back to the history, when I made the campaign promise to do a national search and to start it immediately, that was at a time that we had a superintendent who came in truly with the idea of being a short-term interim superintendent, who's promoted to that position internally with no experience at that level of administration. And I appreciate what he did keeping our district stable, but I think we did our district a disservice by not seeking out an experienced leader at that time. And I voted with Mrs. Surden to conduct a search. The board's will was to not conduct the search. So we were the dissenting votes. So I did stand by my campaign promise that I made based on the situation that we were in 3 years ago. The situation we're in now is completely different. The same board members whose will it was to not conduct the search then voted to terminate our superintendent's contract without cause on very short notice. And we were incredibly lucky to have Dr. Patton step into the role. She is an incredibly experienced leader who was the superintendent of a much larger district for 12 years. So we are not in the position right now of having someone inexperienced who's never done this job, who is doing his best, but was not prepared ahead of time to take that position. We are not in that same situation right now. The other difference right now is that we do have the State Board of Education order over us, and our district is under additional scrutiny, which makes it even more critical that we are focused on the work of the district right now. The other piece of this is attracting good candidates. And I heard what Ms. Plavak said about let's do the search, let's put it out there, let's see what happens. But first of all, there is a financial cost to a search. It's not free. If we do it and don't get good candidates, that is money that has gone down the drain. The second piece of that is if you conduct a search and don't get good candidates, it is a negative on your record for conducting another search later. So if we conducted a search, didn't get any good candidates, extended Dr. Patton's contract a year and conducted another search a year later, we would be in a worse position from having had a failed search right before that. My preference is to have a national search. I greatly appreciate FSBA, but I think it's important to do an RFP to see what all of our options are. And I think if we decided as a board that we wanted to do the search now, we don't have time to really do an RFP. We might be able to squeeze one in, but we would have to go right into revising job description and probably just hiring FSBA. I think if we put this out a year, we can do a request for proposals. FSBA, of course, can be one of those, and we can see what our options are for conducting the search. FSBA has done several searches in the past for this district, but we have still had a lot of superintendent turnover, so it may be worthwhile to explore other search options. I will also say, and if we were to do that, I would suggest putting the RFP out soon, finding the company, nailing them down, because sometimes these search companies have a list of searches they're going to conduct, and just because we say, oh, we want to start a search in January, we could contact FSBA today, and Andrea could say, we don't have the capacity to do a search then. The same could be true for other search companies. So if we nail that down this school year for the search to start next school year, then we're first in the queue. We're not going to get bumped back. We're not going to have a rushed search. So those are all the reasons that I would lean toward extending Dr. Patton's contract, but also just the incredible work that she's doing. We've heard teachers coming up and saying that they're concerned about starting initiatives this year that will be changed next year. If those initiatives can be solidly in place for 2 years and they become part of our school culture, it's less likely that that's going to get uprooted. And there will be some feeling of continuity there. I also, as a board member, working with Dr. Patton has taught me so much about how to be a more effective board member and how effective communication between a superintendent and board member can look. And, I think that it's very valuable for us as a district to have a few years of really effective leadership and communication so we truly know what we want in our next leader. I do hear Ms. Plavak's concern with new board members, that there are 3 seats up for election in August 2026. And to me, that's even more reason to delay a search. If I were voted out of office, I would want the person taking my seat to choose the new leader, because I want our new board members to have buy-in and to have a positive relationship with whoever that leader is, because I don't want the new board members to come on and fire that person almost immediately, which we have had happen in the past when board composition changed. Leaders have been fired very quickly after that, and that is no position to put our school district in, but also it's a very difficult position, and I speak from experience. It is a very difficult position to be in, to come in as a board member, having had no say in a very recently hired superintendent and not having that relationship and buy-in. It's a very difficult position to put a board member in. So for a great number of reasons, if Dr. Patton is willing, and she said she is, I would lean toward having her stay an additional year, putting out an RFP in the next month or so, nailing down our search company and our search timeline, and having that all ready to go for the 26-27 school year. And that is all. I know Dr. McNeely wanted to speak again.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I do appreciate all of my colleagues' comments. What I don't appreciate, but I will tell you individually, myself, some comments made, and you know who you are, but I want to go back to our illustrious superintendent who has given her all and her might and her hours. I don't know how she does it, but she does. And she is willing to continue in that capacity that I'm hearing right now that she would like to go to be extended until 2027. I'm going to say to my colleagues, whether you're here or not, Mr. Vu and I will be here until 2028. And then the rest will be history after that. But 3 of you could very well, as stated, not be here, depending on citizens and their pleasure at that time. I truly think that the cost, and I brought, Madam Chair, our last timeline, it doesn't happen in 3 months, let me tell you. I brought everything from my folder that we have done in the past with community, how many sessions we've had to have, how many, and you keep saying where we are with the state. Well, we know how we got there. And so I don't think even when this year is up, or 2027 is up, or 2028, I think that the State Board of Education and whoever may be in those seats will continue to monitor us. Think of where we are in the state of Florida. Think about it. Think about the newscasts. Think about anything that's going on. Alachua County stands out for many reasons. Okay, you're saying that Andrea Massini said one thing. I spoke to her myself a couple of months and then recently, and she said it could be done if we wanted it. If we could get colleagues, I don't know how she said it to you, Dr. Rockwell, or to Mr. Vu, or to Ms. Playback, or to Ms. Certain, but I know what she said to me. And she said it could be done and could be done with resolution. And Mrs. Johnson worked diligently on every single thing. I brought the qualities that we would be looking for in new leadership. But I'm here to tell you, just like all of you conference with different people in our system, so do I. And I know that we need to move forward with permanency, stability, and the excellence that we have now. I take nothing away from this superintendent, but I'm not going to sit up here and be said some things that are deliberate and because of what individuals chose to do. It's unbelievable the unity that this superintendent has brought with this board, and I'm happy about that, totally happy. But you have to realize where we were, what we weren't doing, what we weren't about, and we still have things that need to be accomplished other than a search. Go back to your strategic planning. Go back to your rezoning. And I've heard and talked with Dr. Patton on many different things, and she has a wide variety of wants and pluses that we need to have. But that does not say that the next leader, and I know we have leaders, and I know that we have other districts that will be looking for a superintendent. In fact, right next door, they're looking. And so when I say next door, I'm talking Marion County. But there will be other places, and if we do we always say national search, but I'm certainly thinking that we would need to do either the national search or if we went with FSBA, it depends again on cost, because we've always had our association to assist us with the searches. And I see no problem in doing that unless it's not cost effective. What I can't understand is your hesitation, even though I've heard each of you, and I admire each of you, but I can say that I'm disappointed that one more time we put off important, critical things that are needed because of our individually commitment to Dr. Patton. Again, I would ask her, maybe tomorrow, after this meeting, would you consider staying? But when a person tells me that that is not the desire, then I'm looking for a new leader, period. And I'm hoping that when we go to the board, put this on the agenda as requested, and we have a full discussion other than a workshop, then maybe some changes will occur in your mind and in your heart. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Dr. Patton.
Yeah, so just real quick, it continues to be my pleasure to help out. It really does. That's why I came. There was no question to that. And it's a tough challenge, because someone said that's sitting in this room, when you come here, you're going to learn to love the people. And that's true. It's a community and people that are absolutely incredible. My concern, or my point of coming was to be able to help us, and I think we're moving that direction, to get just another good, I say I'm good, they're great, right? To have someone great follow behind, because we want to continue that momentum, there's no question. I do think that I didn't even quite realize the assistance that was needed, I guess for lack of a better word, just as we've learned in less than 10 months, how many things. It's not the board. I think you've summarized it well. I sent you guys a list. Here are all the things that I've seen in less than 10 months where the board has come. It's incredible, which shows it can be done. There's no question. But I think operationally, many things, we just heard the ADA, that's what made me say, and I get it. I also worry that, like, my intention too was to bring you a list of 10 or 13 people that I would say, hey, come interview at this county. I'm not sure they would do that right now. That's why when you ask would I stay another year, I would, because I do feel as though we're around that corner. But to your point, Dr. McNeely, the reason I say I wouldn't be here permanently, because in my mind, permanently is like that 10 to 12, it could be up to 10 or 12 years. That I just would never do. I don't know, and I didn't come here thinking I'd even stay that extra year. But I do think there's value to that, but I do want to be sure that we get a great superintendent, because it isn't my desire to work as hard as I work with an incredible team of people, pushing people to go backwards. And I do worry about where you'll always get a superintendent. That's not the issue. The issue is we want a great superintendent. That's why I came, why I know you decided for the first time ever to hire an experienced superintendent. I appreciate everybody's accolades, but you're the reason why we're able to say that, because everybody has been working hard. So has the staff, to be perfectly honest. So I say that because when I say that permanent thing, I don't know if I would do 10 or 12 years again. But I certainly would for sure do one, and hopefully you're in that spot that you can get that great person. There's no question.
I mean, like, I generally agree with that. And I feel like I agree with most of what Dr. McNeely said. I think the only thing that we differ on maybe is just what is our timelines. I don't know why I'm having so much reverberation. Maybe it's just my mic. Like, so to me, again, like, if we're just answering those 3 basic questions, it's national. Totally agree, national. I'm in favor of an RFP and just seeing what options are available, because I think we do want the best candidate possible, and I would like to see if there are groups out there that are able to like reach out nationally. There's a lot of good work being done across the country, not just in Florida, especially when it comes to a lot of like the issues that we're having, like subgroup issues or the achievement gap. And so like my ideal timeline, really, I'd love to start the process like right now and see if we can find someone who's willing to have concurrent time with Dr. Patton. So sometime starting after January 2027. And then, you know, if we're talking about stability, a lot of these district initiatives, it gives that kind of transition time to where they can learn the culture of the school district, learn the initiatives having right now, what are these growing pains we're having and we've been having, what are the highest needs, and it just really just gives that time to start understanding the school district. Because I know Dr. Patton, yes, well, she was from Florida, she's from Collier, Miami-Dade. Alachua County is very different. So no one, I think, could just come in day one and start just understanding the job that needs to get done and the job that any superintendent needs to do for Alachua County. So, I mean, to me, that's like what's most responsible, but I do agree we could start right now, start finding these candidates. And then I totally agree with a lot of these concerns about finding the right person here. I do agree that there is a reputation cost if you try and fail at anything very publicly, right? Like, and I don't want to incur that. And it's practically speaking, not to bring up politics, but it is an election year. So does having 3 open seats, which effectively would be a majority, depress the candidate pool? That's to be seen. And then in terms of something colleagues brought up about selecting a new superintendent right before possibly new board members are sat. I mean, that happened to me. But I gotta say that like if me as a professional, if the person we end up hiring is a professional, I'm not as worried about that. I would say me before taking my seat versus me being in the seat definitely would have a different opinion on that. I've expressed it, I think, most people on this dais at some point, but at least just in that regard, a professional is a professional. So, again, like I don't really see issues with that necessarily, but I do agree with Dr. McNeely. You start right now, but I also agree with some of my colleagues in that we need to do it in a responsible way that does ensure stability and that does give a transition time. And I feel like if we're trying to start July 2026, there isn't a transition time available. But if we're starting January 2027 or sometime around there, there is a transition time available. And I know it's not traditional to have a new person start in the middle of the school year, but if they're overlapping with the certain superintendent, I don't really see an issue with that. And to me, it is worth that cost to have a smooth transition, because I've heard it from a lot of folks in the community, a lot of teachers. All this superintendent shuffle is really, really, really hard on the frontline staff because they're just figuring out the new desires, new strategies, new whims of a new leader every 2 years. And that's, yeah, very taxing on the job itself. And I'd rather have just the system we have currently going in place some way, survive and stay. So we do have that. But yeah, I don't see why we wait. I say we start the RFP process now, figure out where these firms are, contract one of them as a board, and then just get moving.
Ms. Surden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I can agree with you all in starting the RFP process. I wanted to just kind of, I'm not sure if I understood you correctly, Mr. Vu. You said have we hire someone and they be on staff in January 27?
Right, but maybe they're not contracted to be the superintendent until July 2027, and then they have an overlap time with Dr. Patton to start understanding all like the real subtleties of Alachua County and ACPS, because we're different.
So you know, the way the search cycle is gone has changed tremendously from when Dr. McNeely first came on board to where we are now. And what it seems to be like the tenor is it's highly unlikely that we would get someone experienced to leave their current district mid-year. So that's normally, you know, like at the start of the semester. I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't be done, but it's not, I haven't seen it. So
We can always ask.
so I'm thinking, so, I mean, and you could have, exactly, it may not necessarily be a school leader. It could be, it depending on the type of characteristics and what we would want to look for in a new leader, if it would be that. But I do think starting the process of the, you know, an RFP or however gives us an option of trying to evaluate who we would want to do our search, you know, be it an outside firm or the state association. And then I think we start looking at the job description, because that is a policy and would take, you know, the reads, it goes through that there. But I think I still stick with my tenor of Dr. Rockwell summed it up very eloquently, much better than what I did, and the position of where we are now is different. When we hired the last interim superintendent, I advocated very hard for the board at that time because 3 members were going to be rolling off. We were in the same situation. I advocated very hard for us to not do the search until the new board was seated. I advocated then when the new board was seated, the 3 members, for us to do the search, and it didn't happen that way. I also, we had consensus on those really hard, contentious issue of rezoning and doing that because we knew we had been advised that if we should get all those things, hard things done that cause or could set up the new leader to be in a bad way in the crosshairs of the public, and rezoning is one of those issues, and we didn't get that done. We didn't get the spot rezoning done. Then it was said we wouldn't do spot, we'll do comprehensive. We didn't get that done. And then right now, we got to get that. We got to get rezoning done for a number of reasons. But so I think we still have some heavy lifting items and the continuity of operations to get some buy-in and the continued buy-in and lift up of our staff. And I'm just going to tell you, like, literacy was why I ran. Improving literacy among African-American students was why I ran. I wanted to be a part of. And what my understanding of my part would be before I was elected is different from my understanding what it actually is, right? But that is still a goal of mine. I think that some of the initiatives that we've started this year by Dr. Patton, and the partnership with the county and with UF and with Pete, you know, some of these things that are just investments that are being made, we really need to really hold on to those things and push them forward, lift them up so that we can positively impact our students. I think when I spoke with Dr. Patton during my interview, I was telling her, and some of the things she said reminded me of what the current superintendent of the year from a different county is now. He said, and I told her after I came back from a day in the legislature last year that what I dubbed the Miami-Dade way of how they do work, how their method of working and rising up students is what David Moore has done. And she told me that she worked with him and his dad down in Miami-Dade in the sense of their goal is that every single student, they have 90% of their students reading on grade level by grade 3. And that just sounds just real far, you know, like a real stretch goal, but it is possible. I mean, they're doing it in Indian River. I don't know about in Dade if they're doing it, but I know that it is possible. And I think we're doing some of those initiatives, those things we've adopted. I don't know, I don't think she knew it and she calls it something different, but that Indian River is doing that, and that's something, an investment that the Children's Trust is making, the county, Alachua County is making, and then with the school district, I think we position ourselves, we should position ourselves to continue that work so that we can try to really improve the outcome so that we don't have the schools that are in turnaround status because of them being below the 41% for subgroups. And I think this constant changing is part of that, and we missed that. We missed that window of opportunity in doing a search a few years ago when we had the board turnover in 3 members. And I think right now, if I'm not here to do the search, that's fine. I want what's best for the organization, and I think right now, if we are to start a search and bring somebody on at the end of June of 2026, I think it would be a grave mistake. It would be another change, and that would not be in the best interest of the organization, of the district. I'm willing to forego my vote on that, you know, be it. But because I think what's best for the district right now is that we stay with the leadership that we have for an additional year, and we do the search. But I do think we move forward with making some progress towards doing a search and having someone on by June of 2027. And whatever that looks like in overlap, I don't know. Like I said, we may get the advice of, you know, we may be able to get a candidate, like you say, but I just, the districts that we've seen, that I've seen hiring people, they haven't left their current district mid-school year. That's what made that the change that we had back in November so difficult, was that it was like it threw us in a tailspin, and that we had to try to find someone. And I'll say again, to get someone who had experience at the CEO. The superintendent is your chief executive officer of the district, and they've got to have a handle on not just being a long-term district employee. They have to have a handle and know how a district operates and all those pieces and parts and how they fit together. And to just put somebody in that's been in a district that's not fair to the organization. It's not fair to the taxpayers. It's costly in terminating someone and paying out a severance and all of that. So my vote is, you know, I tried to push forward and do a search, and I wasn't successful. I wasn't in the prevailing 3-vote gap, but we try to work forward and we try to move forward to do what's best for the organization. And I think that's why I say I think we wait. We do it, since she's willing to stay an additional year. We offer that extension, and then we put out the RFP, and we start moving towards doing that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Surden. I also agree that we put out the RFP quickly, and I think to Mr. Vu's point about overlap, if we can have a candidate nailed down by January or February of next year, that overlap can look many different ways. It can look like virtual meetings. It could look like the new person coming for a week each month for several months. We could negotiate, or the new board could negotiate what that overlap would look like. But I think I think the idea of having some sort of overlap period, transition period, that isn't just during the summer, because typically if we have a July 1 end date, maybe we have a June 1st start date. It's, you know, that 4-week transition, but it's all during the summer. So if we could have some transition, even if it looks different than sharing an office 5 days a week, you know, I think there are other options. So for me, I see the greatest benefit to our students, our staff, our district in putting out an RFP now, getting our search timeline nailed down, and taking Dr. Patton up on her gracious offer to stay 1 more year. Dr. Patton.
Yeah, so I hear your concern. It would be my concern too, as a transition, right? Because you're right, Mrs. Certain, that the really good superintendents that are those great people, they won't leave in January because you're looking for an experienced person. But the great thing about being part of AASA, the American Association of School Administrators, the national soup, When I came and we talked last January, I also sat and talked with the CEO and about 5 others to say, how do you do transitions in other places that have multiple turnovers because they have many more superintendents? Florida only has 67, right? Illinois, almost 1,000. New Jersey, 600. Pennsylvania, 500. So when I spoke with the AASA people, particularly because of our situation. So what they do is they'll do that typical like a month overlap, but what they do is they contract ahead of time, just exactly where you just said, Dr. Rockwell. They buy, quote, so many days ahead. So like in our case, we would want that person to come in and watch, how do we do data dialogues? Watch and be part of the conversations in the spring about selecting whatever is going on. So it is that combination of having them come enough, because they're not going to leave their district, but there's certainly the ways to do it. So that's why I spent a little while finding that out, just so my own peace of mind, whatever happens here, is that you don't just walk out and the new person walks in, because you would want to have that of a more of a transition. So there, and you don't have to have that answer today. I'm just saying there are definitely, like you're saying, both Mr. Vu and you, about that idea of transitions. There's different ways that it can look.
Thank you, Dr. Patton. Does anyone have anything else to add to the discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to know, when will we put this on the regular agenda for discussion? Because you're not voting today, you're only talking. This is a workshop. When will it go on the agenda? And since we look as if we are not going to have a meeting, a board meeting on the 20th, that would seem that we're now pushed until the 4th of November. Is that correct, Mr. Delaney?
Yes, ma'am, that first Tuesday in
Okay, that's perfect. Perfect. I'd like to see it there at that point. And then we can have the public to hear us and our comments again. You may be saying the same very thing that you're saying as a group now, but I think the public needs to hear everything like you've always wanted, to hear us say what we need to say at that time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. So, Mr. Delaney, I don't see the purpose of having a discussion item because we've discussed. If you're asking for a vote, that would be an action item.
I'm sorry. I would like to have that. No matter what you are saying, Chairman Rockwell, I would like to have that as well, you'd be voting, but we still we can still have discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Delaney.
Sure. My suggestion, based on the discussion I've heard from the board and the direction given today, is ideally staff would be bringing a recommendation to start an RFP. And so the board could be voting on initiating the RFP process, and there can be discussion about that.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. So we'll have that on the November 4th agenda.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I think it's a good idea.
Is there any other business before we adjourn?
Yeah, I asked Dr. Patton to give us dates on future meetings and what we're doing, because I know we got rid of the October 20th. So I'd like to know about the reorg. I'd like to know about the board meetings. I'd like to know about what's going on since I work and I might have to take another day off from school. So if we could go through October and November for sure, and then even if you know what's going on before Christmas. Thank you.
Okay, so,
And the reorg has, by statute, has to be 2 weeks after the general election, so it can't be before the November 18th. So, and that's scheduled for,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think it's the October 20th is canceled. We hold the November 4th board meeting. Staff is asking about having additional time for the budget for the workshop for the November 5th. So,
You told us that would be November 19th is what you told me.
right. So here's the question on that, as long as we can have that conversation. So for staff, it would be the best if we could do it on the 19th, which is Wednesday, only because to default the workshop, we usually have it in the day, which that day was completely loaded. So we're going to still be bringing all the voted on items at the beginning of November. They're already set for that. So you still have to have that second meeting for reorganization purposes. So I understand here, we've done it at 5 o'clock, we've done it at 9 o'clock, we've done it at 10 o'clock. So a suggestion from, this is staff, but it's your meeting, would be that on the 19th, you would start at like 9 or 10, either one, to have the reorg, but then let that workshop flow right after it's done, if that's possible. And then also, I'll throw the last one out that some board members have asked about the December meeting too, because that always ties into FSBA. And so some are attending workshops on the 2nd, which would be our current board meeting. So we look to see potentially December 16th, which you had already had held when we had 2 meetings anyways. So those would be the topics. Do you want me to go back through those dates?
Yeah. So did you say you're getting rid of the 18th board meeting? Or you're keeping the November 18th board meeting and then having the next day a workshop and a reorg meeting?
Right, so we would not have a full-blown board meeting. You would still have a second meeting, but at the rate we've been going, we would only have it to hold the reorg meeting, because all the board items to be voted on would be voted on
So the reorg meeting is on the 18th?
No.
the
Reorg
19th.
meeting is on
So
the
the
19th?
18th would no longer be a board meeting.
Correct.
We're trying to move to one
So
business
we're
meeting a month.
eliminating the meeting on the 18th.
Correct, right,
It's moving it to the 19th.
moving it.
Well, I thought you said when you moved it, that's what you're calling the reorg meeting?
Well, it's a board meeting. What would happen at that board meeting is the reorganization. So it's really moving the 18th to the 19th for the reorganization.
And you don't think we're going to have items at all the rest of the month until, then we wouldn't have a board meeting again till the 16th of December. So you're going to go from
So
November 4th
staff is all set.
to
Again,
the 16th of December?
yes, we've already talked to our staff. Again, it's just the history of how the preparations from our side, not your side, our side are done.
What about public needing to see us for like the superintendent search or anything else that's not addressed on the 4th of November? You feel confident that they won't want to talk to us on the 18th at all? On
Who's
that board
they?
meeting? That's scheduled on that board meeting? Because we're going to go 6 weeks without another meeting if we go from November 4th to December 16th.
The 18th, though, was never, at least last year, it wasn't a regular meeting. It purely was just the reorg.
Right, that's what generally happens every month, every year in November. It's not a second full-blown meeting, it's only for the reorg. If you look back at it's the history of most districts too. Let me not
even
say
for
it's
us,
you,
it's like random
it's pretty
time.
much everybody.
And you want to get rid of the 2nd of December because that's when people are going to be on vacation or going to a workshop?
Well, you have colleagues that won't be at the meeting because they'll be at FSBA training, which I made a note that when you have the reorg meeting this year, that we should automatically schedule that meeting, not the first week of December, because that FSBA never changes. It's always that first week of December, so it's always a scramble, so.
And then Dr. McNeely brought up that November 4th is Election Day. So is that,
We've always had meetings on election day, so.
no, I'm just saying,
I mean, there's just
so
really
what
one.
time are you then thinking of starting this meeting on the 19th?
So the 19th would end up being either 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, depending on the board's preference.
Well, I have to take off from school, so it doesn't matter.
I don't think that's fair to our citizens at all, and I see some confused looks we have established until we change to once a month, and I know the superintendent has been talking to us about that, but we need to leave our dates intact, period. And I have to say period, because I don't understand why we're doing what we're doing at this point.
I mean, the only one we're eliminating or not moving would be the November 18th.
But you're
reorg.
saying 9 o'clock in the morning, unless you're doing a board meeting that night as well.
No, so
No.
the reorg meeting has been in the morning. It's been, it's fluctuate, depends on when it was, if it's Thanksgiving week, sometimes it's fell through there. Like when I was first sworn in, it was done, I think, 10 o'clock or something like that, because it was Thanksgiving week. We had our reorganization meeting, the leasing court meeting, and then a short board meeting where the attorney's contract was part of the meeting. So, and it was done in the morning. I think we had one in 2020. It was done at 5 o'clock. That was the COVID year. We had a meeting, I think a short meeting inside, it was outside, at dusk. So it's been all, but the most of the time it has been in the morning because it's not very much that's there. This year, there's nobody to be sworn in, so I don't know. If we want to come for a reorganization meeting on the 18th at our regular time, I'm fine with that. But and we still have the workshop and on the 19th. So I think what I gather is, since it was just the leasing corp and the reorg, and we have the workshop of combining them on one day, and it's that way it doesn't split us having to everybody come together for two meetings, 2 different days. But
Which was our thought.
that was, so,
Can we make a decision? I'll go with whatever y'all say. I just don't, I'm trying to either erase stuff out of my calendar, add stuff to my calendar. I have to ask for days off. So just let me know, can we make a decision now about what we're going to do?
The right one.
It would be a lot easier if we could.
We just go down the line, like, I'm okay with moving the reorg meeting to November 19th and then having the workshop right after that. I think too, for staff, that would just be the best, because otherwise the reorg meeting is the staff, when we're paying overtime and we're paying like basically a lot of money for what ends up being a 30-minute meeting. And I don't really see the value in having a reorg meeting.
9 a.m.
I'm 10 a.m. Let's do 10. That's my vote. Move everything to the 19th. That's on the 18th, and start at 10 a.m.
Madam Chair, before you make a decision on your exact date, I heard so much today about what we should be doing, especially with student academics and everything else. I think that we need to relook at what is expected, and maybe if you and Dr. Rockwell, you and Dr. Patton are handling the agenda for these meetings, maybe we need to relook at what's going there for action, consent, and all of these other things, because I don't agree with what we've done in the past with the changes and stuff. But when we say that our meetings are supposed to be the first and third Tuesday, I expect that. Okay? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I'm fine with the 19th at 10 a.m. for the reorganizational meeting. And, if people are really adamant that we have a meeting on December 2nd, I don't know if we would be able to have quorum because of FSBA.
I don't have to go.
Mr. Delaney.
I think it's been fairly common that this board and other boards around the state tend to hold one meeting in December, and they do schedule around FSBA. And that's what this district has done in the past, so.
Yeah, I also, I want to reiterate that, and Mr. Delaney, correct me if I get any of this wrong, but the purpose of our business meetings is to conduct the business of the meeting, to approve the consent agenda and go through any action items. We have public comment at the meetings, but but that is not the purpose of the meeting. And public can reach us by phone, by email. So it would be, and especially with the state watching us, I think it would be a problem to have a full business meeting for one action item or no action items. I think that would look inefficient and poorly prepared on our part. You know, the purpose of a business meeting is to conduct the business of the board. And so I think we need to keep that in mind.
For my clarification, Madam Chair, at the reorganization meeting, is that when we set dates for future meetings? That's when we set dates, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And then, so, again, for my clarification, we have the meeting on the 4th of November. We're canceling the meeting on the 18th. We're just going to have a long reorg and workshop on the 19th. And then we are canceling the 2nd of December, and we're going to have the 16th of December as a board meeting. Is that correct? For right now, for right now, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Is there any further business or discussion?
A time for the 19th? I don't have a
Oh,
time
a
down.
time for the
So are
19th?
we going to,
10?
I think, yeah, Mr. Vu said 10.
It seems
if
like
that
there's
was okay.
consensus for 10. Okay, was there anything else that needed to be discussed? Hearing none, this workshop is adjourned.